Chapter 8:10. Kill everyone. Although Yi Shiwen had displayed his outstanding combat prowess, no one held him in high regard. Yi Shiwen might have increased his strength by a considerable margin, but he couldn't go against them simultaneously. Try me. Yi Shiwen smiled coldly, and killing intent flashed across his eyes. In the next instant, his silhouette had already rushed forward. Countless divinities unfolded perilously as he dashed within the crowd. Let's surround him and kill him together. We shall distribute the red spider lilies he has evenly, said an expert from the heavenly martial sect. Then he lunged himself towards Yi Shiwen and unleashed the heavenly martial heaven's severing palm. The horrifying ripples leaking out from the attack caused a massive crack to appear on the ground. The crack was tearing with lightning speed towards Yi Shiwen. The horrifying energy ripples contained within were intended to tear him apart. Yi Shiwen's head didn't even raise, even when facing such a ferocious attack. He merely stepped on the ground, and layers of energy started expanding outwards, with Yi Shiwen as its center. When the colossal crack came in contact with the energy, it was forcefully stopped. The energy contained within the crack instantly dispersed on the spot. Fear flashed across Wei Mingyang's eyes upon seeing this. The fear, which he had been deliberately suppressing for a long time, finally reappeared. Compared to Ran Qingtian, he had suffered even more in the hands of Yi Shiwen. No matter how much he increased his strength, and no matter how much more powerful he was compared to the past, he couldn't even defeat Yi Shiwen. He seemed always to be oppressed by Yi Shiwen, no matter what. This had left an enormous trauma within his heart. Under normal circumstances, the trauma wouldn't appear at all. However, all of a sudden, everything had resurfaced. Yi Shiwen became much stronger than previously, and became much more unpredictable. The heavenly martial sect's experts' heavenly martial heaven's severing palm had already reached Yi Shiwen. The terrifying air current it brought along caused Yi Shiwen's shirt to be blown violently. Yi Shiwen instantly moved. He raised his hand and went up against the attack. Boom! A loud bang resounded. The heavenly martial heaven's severing palm crashed against Yi Shiwen's palm. However, just as the terrifying momentum was about to bring about an explosion, it was enveloped in a layer of majestic qi. Then it was slowly compressed and slowly turned into nothingness. Everyone was shocked by this scene. They were staring at the battle between them attentively, and never expected Yi Shiwen to dissipate the attack casually. Although this heavenly martial sect's expert wasn't as strong as the 8 Stars School's great elder, he was still in the transcendent realm. No one in the transcendent realm could be underestimated. In fact, all of them possessed their specialties. Everyone's expression changed. Your attack's over? It's my turn now. Yi Shiwen strode forward and clenched his palm into a fist. He punched forward, and the air shook violently, which formed a colossal air column. Then it descended upon the heavenly martial sect's expert. The heavenly martial sect's expert hurriedly generated a protective barrier. He raised both of his hands and let out a loud yell. Boom! As the air column violently clashed against the protective barrier, it didn't stop at all. Instead, it broke through the expert's defense and crashed against his chest. Bang! The heavenly martial sect's expert was knocked away, and he spewed out a mouthful of blood. His entire body flew out uncontrollably and crashed against numerous mountains. After he finally stopped flying, his life force had already been emptied. Yi Shiwen's domineering fist power ran rampant within his body and took away all of his life force. Although it might have seemed long, the battle merely happened for a short while. However, in only a short while, another transcendent realm expert had been killed. Such combat prowess made everyone feel a chill down their spine. How is this possible? Everyone was shocked and was in disbelief. All of them widened their eyes. Let's all attack together. This guy is dangerous. We definitely can't leave him alive. An elder from the heavenly martial sect yelled. If anyone previously doubted Yi Shiwen's combat prowess, they hold on doubts any longer. After entering the transcendent realm first level peak, Yi Shiwen could wipe them all out. Then, I shall start with you. Yi Shiwen smiled coldly. He instantly reached the front of the elder, and fiery clouds were unleashed from his palm. The sky-collapsing fire cloud hand covered the sky, and the entire world seemed like it was about to be crushed. The heavenly martial sex elder also unleashed his heavenly martial heaven's severing palm. A tremendous amount of killing intent was spread about, and boundless momentum was unleashed. He instantly unleashed it towards Yi Shiwen, filled with anger. His attack wasn't any weaker compared to the 8-star school's great elder's strength. He was stronger than regular transcendent realm experts. The meteor sex elder at the other side also rushed forward and unleashed his 1000-Starlord fist. Starlights filled the skies and intertwined together to form a vast web. He didn't care about his reputation any longer. As long as he was able to kill Yi Shiwen, everything would be worth it. He could already tell that he wouldn't be able to defeat Yi Shiwen alone. He could only rely on the help of others. Boom! The sky-collapsing fire cloud hand and the heavenly martial heavens, severing palm clashed against each other mid-air. A beam of unimaginable light was created when the two hands clashed against each other. It exploded in mid-air and swept through the area, with numerous sands and stone accompanying it. The two forces, capable of destroying the world, clashed against each other. However, only after a moment of stalemate, the sky-collapsing fire cloud hand broke through the heavenly martial heavens, severing palm with lightning speed. It wasn't because of the heavenly martial heavens, severing palm inferior to the sky-collapsing fire cloud hand. Yi Shiwen was merely more robust. Although they were both in the transcendent peak realm first level, there still exists the strength disparity. Just like a bucket of water and a glass of water. Although they were both filled up completely, there was still a considerable difference between the two. Boom! The sky-collapsing fire cloud hand struck the heavenly martial sex elder, which caused him to fly out. Various bones in his body were snapped apart. Although he wasn't killed on the spot, he was already gravely wounded and was close to dying. Just as Yi Shiwen wanted to chase after him, the meteor sect elder's 1000-Starlord fist arrived. The sky full of starlights was just like a vast net, trapping him within. Yi Shiwen did not bother evading it. Instead, he rushed towards it and went up against the net. He opened his hands, and golden divinities surged from his hands. He grabbed the net, and a hole instantly appeared by the vast net. His body transformed into a beam of light, and he rushed forward, reaching the front of the meteor sect elder. With a paw, his fist was punched into the air. The chi within his body started circulating fanatically and started boiling. His strength was already raised to its maximum at such a moment, although he was already much stronger than them to begin with. However, despite that, he didn't dare to underestimate his foes, who were all in the transcendent realm first-level peak as well. Every single attack of his was unleashed to the fullest. Even a lion would need to unleash its full strength to capture a rabbit. It was the same for the battle against those of the same realm. Even a tiny bit of mistake might result in his death. Before Yi Shiwen's fist reached, his fist pressure had already come oppressing the meteor sex elder. Although he didn't manage to cause space itself to crumble, he had already caused space to undergo distortion. The meteor sect elder was filled with shock and attempted to flee. His 1000-Starlord palm was broken apart by Yi Shiwen. However, Yi Shiwen wouldn't let him do so. He instantly chased after the meteor sect elder. As his devil wings expanded, his entire figure seemed to be wrapped within winds and lightning. He instantly traversed through space and landed a punch on the meteor sect elder. His massive fist was just like a large hammer, capable of shattering the world. Boom! The meteor sect elder was blasted away. Although he intended to save the heavenly martial sex elder, he failed, as he was blasted away by Yi Shiwen. This was all due to the disparity in strength between him and Yi Shiwen. The others weren't able to react to the situation. They stared dumbfoundedly at both the gravely wounded meteor sect elder and heavenly martial sex elder. Boom! Yi Shiwen strode forward and instantly reached where the meteor sex elder was, and his palm connected with the meteor sect elder's body. Although the meteor sect elder tried his best to defend against it, Yi Shiwen broke through all of his defense. With a tragic scream, his body was destroyed on the spot. His blood splattered everywhere, accompanied by fragments of his bones. Senior brother. The few remaining experts of the meteor sect were enraged, and they immediately lunged themselves towards Yi Shiwen. However, Yi Shiwen was still much stronger than them. Boom, boom, boom. The three experts weren't strong enough to go against Yi Shiwen. and all of their bodies exploded on the spot. Yi Zaiwen's combat prowess increased the more he fought, and he became stronger and stronger. He was giving off an unparalleled demeanor. "Quickly leave, all of you. We'll hold him back." The two remaining experts from the Heavenly Martial Sect and the 8 Stars School yelled towards Ran Qingtian and Wei Mingyang. They looked exceptionally tragic. It was fine if they died, but Ran Qingtian and Wei Mingyang were their young experts. They were the future of their sections. The two of them were much more important than the elders. "Don't worry, none of you would be able to leave." Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. A vast and ancient mirror slowly rose from his body, and numerous spiritual energy started gathering towards the center of the mirror fanatically. The gathering speed became quicker and quicker, and waves of horrifying energy started fluctuating. Even the Transcendent Realm experts' blood essence that Yi Shiwen had killed previously were all being absorbed by the mirror. Boom! The ray of light pillar descended. It enveloped the entire area, shattered the vacuum, and befell upon the 4 of them. Chapter 8:11. The problems after becoming famous under Yi Zaiwen's absolute strength. The 4 of them had no way of retaliating. Although they were all in the Transcendent Realm, the Star Beast avatar was much stronger than an average human. Without a doubt, talent plays a massive role in martial arts cultivation. To a certain extent, the Tyrant Body Scripture was created solely for changing the disparity in talents. It was unimaginable what kind of people could create such a martial art, and how exceptional he was. Yi Shiwen had previously killed many Transcendent Realm experts. After all of their blood essence was absorbed by the Tianyuan mirror, the Tianyuan mirrors might had reached its highest value. After killing everyone, a total amount of 70 red spider lilies collected by them were all taken away by Yi Shiwen. He had up to 100 red spider lilies in his possession with the 30 he originally possessed. It was all the essence of the zombies since they were all gathered within this red spider lily. Yi Shiwen was overjoyed. If his original body could utilize all of these red spider lilies, filled with the Transcendent Realm's essence, breaking through to the Transcendent Realm wouldn't be a problem at all. If his original body also entered the Transcendent Realm, he wouldn't be afraid of anything anymore. There were still the roars of zombies from far away. Numerous ferocious gazes locked onto Yi Shiwen. They were filled with hate, vengeance, and violence. However, Yi Shiwen didn't mind it at all. To prevent more troubles from occurring, he decided to leave this area instantly. Very quickly, Yi Zaiwen's act of killing all the remaining experts from the Overlord forces was spread throughout the ancient battlefield, and caused an uproar. Although Yi Shiwen was famous, he was still an expert who had just ascended to the Transcendent Realm. It was considered something minor. After all, he had just joined the group of Transcendent Realms under the starry skies. However, his name was currently being mentioned throughout an entire area. Although the White Sun Sect's experts had left and only 10 Transcendent Realm experts remained, there were still some top-notch people, like the 8 Stars School's Great Elder. And yet, Yi Shiwen had managed to dispose of all of them. How strong is he? No one was able to fathom it. Very soon, the higher-ups of the Meteor Sect, the Heavenly Martial Sect, and the 8 Stars School gave their response. Of course, they were all enraged. Although the ones that died by the hands of Yi Shiwen weren't more than 10, more than 30 people died, including the ones that perished by the hands of the zombies. Even if it was the Overlord forces, they had still experienced a heartache. Even when they were besieging the true martial domain's local forces, they had never suffered from such huge losses before. And now they were all blaming Yi Shiwen. They had even released a wanted order on Yi Shiwen. Whoever's able to acquire Yi Zaiwen's head shall receive huge rewards. If you're interested in joining the 8 Stars School, an elder position would be awaiting you. Whoever manages to kill Yi Shiwen, our Heavenly Martial Sect shall reward you with 1,000,000 spirit crystals. Whoever has any information regarding Yi Zaiwen's whereabouts, our Meteor Sect shall reward you with 10 million elixirs upon confirmation. The 3 Overlord forces had worked together and released their wanted order. The moment the wanted orders came out, it caught the attention of many people from the ancient battlefield, and many people were prepared to take action. No matter which condition was listed by the 3 Overlord forces, it was sufficient to allure them into it. This was especially true to those stray individual cultivators. It was already tough for them to cultivate. No matter if it was resources or martial arts, they lacked in it. Even if they were lucky enough to attain the transcendent realm, they were considered mightily blessed. Upon hearing the conditions of the three overlords, they were undoubtedly lured in by the offer. Although Yi Shiwen had a record of killing close to 10 transcendent realm experts, based on what the White Sun sect had said, all of the experts had just escaped a bloodbath with many zombies. As such, Yi Shiwen was able to take advantage of the situation. In all actuality, Yi Shiwen wasn't that powerful. Many people had the same thoughts. The True Martial School had also released their statement. Whoever that went to receive their bounty would be the enemies of the True Martial School. Although the True Martial School couldn't defeat the overlords, they could still defeat these stray individual cultivators. However, the demeanor of the True Martial School wasn't as strong as the overlords. With the overlords backing them up, they didn't care about the True Martial School's threats. If they managed to slay Yi Shiwen and chose to enter the 8-star school, the True Martial School wouldn't be able to do anything. Under such circumstances, numerous people from the ancient battlefield decided to take action. They were all motivated to locate Yi Shiwen. Due to the efforts of numerous experts, Yi Ziwen's trace was quickly located. There was no way to hide it from these people. Yi Shiwen had just killed a bunch of vile entities that were causing havoc in the mountain range. Just as he came out, 10 silhouettes appeared in front of him. 10 of them were clad in black clothings, and the aura they released was overbearing and horrifying. "So you're Yi Shiwen?" A man with a 50-year-old appearance asked coldly. His gaze was locked onto Yi Shiwen as if he wasn't looking at a living being, but a bunch of treasures. "I am." Yi Shiwen let out a sigh of relief. He was naturally aware of the uproar caused by the three overlords in the outside world. After all, the matter had caused a considerable commotion. As long as one wasn't deaf, they would be aware of it. In truth, he didn't plan on hiding from others as well. Ever since the White Sun sect people had left, he knew that he wouldn't be able to conceal it anymore. Of course, things would be different if he killed everyone from the White Sun sect. However, even though Yi Shiwen wasn't someone benevolent, he wouldn't kill someone he didn't hold a grudge against. It didn't matter even if they found him. Whoever dares to come to him will all be killed. "You're also here for the bounty?" Yi Shiwen seemed to be laughing with a few sadistic intentions within. "You aren't stupid, huh?" said the man with a 50-year-old appearance with a cold smile. "It's such a pity. Although we hold no grudge against each other, it's your fault for having such a valuable head." "Say your name," said Yi Shiwen. "Sure. At the very least, you deserve to know the name of your killer." The man with a 50-year-old appearance laughed loudly as if everything was already determined. "I'm the head of the dim shadow 10 extremities. These are all my underlings." Maybe it was because he felt that the outcome of the battle had already been decided. The head of the 10 extremities introduced all of his underlings to Yi Shiwen, and didn't hold Yi Shiwen in high regard at all. "You're wrong. I don't kill people with no name." Yi Shiwen smiled, showing off his row of white teeth. His smile was very bright and very cheerful. The head of the 10 extremities was surprised. He never expected Yi Shiwen to say this. His face instantly turned sour. "You're truly as arrogant as how the information describes you to be. Who do you think you are? Even in the face of death, do you not know what kind of situation you're in?" "Exactly. This kid thinks that he's invincible, just because he killed those transcendent realm experts. However, our dim shadow 10 extremities are different from that group of mobs. Besides, they had been fighting against so many zombies. You've merely took advantage of the situation," said the vice head of the dim shadow 10 extremities in an angry manner. After the matters of Yi Shiwen killing off the remaining disciples of the three overlords were spread around, the Yellow Spring became a place where numerous experts would frequently visit. Although there were quite an amount of zombies, it wasn't enough to fend off the greedy martial art warriors. They couldn't resist the temptation of the red spider lilies. Every overlord had dispatched a group of people to the Yellow Spring. Other stray individual cultivators were doing so as well. As a result, more than 200 Transcendent Realm experts would be searching for the zombies in the Yellow River every year, solely for the red spider lilies. In fact, according to the rumors, Most of the zombies had already been slain. The zombies weren't considered scary. What's truly scary was human greed. In the face of humans' yearns, everything else pales in comparison in terms of terrifyingness. Yi Shiwen had recently heard of the name of the dim shadow 10 extremities as well. According to the rumors, they were 10 sworn brothers. For so many years, they had done countless misdeeds and were extraordinarily evil. In fact, the martial art that they cultivated required the refinement of souls. As a result, whenever they massacred an area, the hundreds or even thousands of miles around the area wouldn't have anyone alive. They were extremely famous for their evil deeds. However, even though they were stray cultivators, they had acquired an exceptional legacy. As a result, no one dared to underestimate them. Even the overlords wouldn't want to provoke these people easily. It was mainly because it wasn't necessary. If these 10 extremities were to meet up against some compelling experts, they would have fled long ago. If the experts dispatched by the overlords weren't strong enough or weren't enough in terms of numbers, they would instead be killed by the 10 extremities. As such, even though they went stray for so many years, no one was able to do anything to them. Upon entering the ancient battlefield, the 10 extremities had continuously attacked others. Due to the martial art they cultivated, an ancient battlefield filled with numerous ghosts and evil spirits was like heaven. In a short amount of time, they had achieved an enormous breakthrough. No wonder why they dared to come here. They had their confidence to back them up. Big brother, second brother, stop talking nonsense to someone that's going to die soon. Let's kill him. After we got the bounty rewards from the 3 overlord factions, the ancient battlefield would be like a heaven for us. With just a few years, all of us might even ascend to the Transcendent Realm first level peak. When the time comes, we'll be able to go anywhere we want to. No one can do anything against us 10 brothers anymore. If we found the path leading to the ancient Barons continent, we might even make a reputation for ourselves in the ancient Barons continent. The youngest brother among the dim shadow 10 extremities couldn't hold himself back any further, and was overly impatient. That's true. Everyone, let's go kill him. Hints of killing intent and greed flashed across the eyes of the head of the dim shadow 10 extremities. Why are you so busybody? You're causing troubles for yourself, said Yi Shiwen as he let out a sigh. Fine. Leaving the bunch of you alive is bad for the world. I'll just dispose of all of you here, for the sake of the innocent ghosts that died by your hands. Arrogant. Such boastfulness. You're so arrogant. Even when you're about to die. After today, you won't be alive anymore. I want to tear you into pieces. Everyone in the dim shadow 10 extremities was scolding Yi Shiwen. They were all angered by him. Chapter 8:12. Waves after waves. Some people won't give up until they're in the face of death. Do you truly think that I'm such an easy bullying target? Yi Shiwen's expression turned ice cold. As long as the 3 overlord forces didn't retract their warrant, problems like these would continuously sprout. The 3 overlords might even take action themselves. To prevent problems like these, there was only one solution. That was to kill. Kill them until they're afraid. Despite being the top-notch experts under the starry skies, they were still fearful of offending the strong, while they deliberately enjoyed bullying the weak. Only by killing them continuously would he be able to inflict fear upon them, which would stop them from approaching him. Every time Yi Shiwen uttered a word, his aura would surge by a little amount. Very quickly, his aura had surged to a horrifying state. The dim shadow 10 extremities finally realized that something was off. Hurry, let's attack him together. Let's kill this brat, yelled the dim shadow 10 extremities head. Before he finished speaking, Yi Shiwen had already initiated the attack. A meter-long green sword was materialized through his sword intent, and a buzzing sound resounded. Yi Shiwen had concentrated all his chi within the sword. The dim shadow 10 extremities head was the strongest and was the first to react to the situation. He took out a jet-black demonic blade, and jet-black lights were spewing out from his blade. The tragic cries of innocent ghosts filled with vengeance resounded, and would make one's hair stand on its end. His movement was swift, and his demonic blade was the first to be slashed downwards. His movements were extremely agile, albeit having such a tremendous amount of force. It generated boundless demonic winds, and seemed like it was about to blow everything apart. The tragic screams of the innocent ghosts became louder and louder. With such a reputation, he was naturally not weak either. The other 9 people among the dim shadow 10 extremities behind him also started to make their move. They were also wielding a demonic blade. It looked the same as the blade the head was using. Precisely because they were all the same, it caused their demeanor to skyrocket. Facing the 10 demonic blades slashing towards him, Yi Zaiwen's expression did not change. He attacked with lightning speed using his sword. As if he had traversed through space, he instantly appeared in front of the dim shadow 10 extremities head. He did not major in the cultivation of the way of the sword. In fact, he only knew a little about the way of the sword. He was merely intimidating the sword intent in the demon lord's tomb. However, it was nothing for him. The path he was walking was the path of oppressing everything through brute force. As long as his strength was overbearing enough, every kind of martial art he used would be indestructible, and the force contained within would be boundless. Even if it was some basic sword techniques, it was sufficient in destroying anything in its pathway. Surprise was written in the eyes of the head of the dim shadow 10 extremities. He never expected Yi Zaiwen's speed to be so quick to this extent. In the report that he initially received, it mentioned that Yi Zaiwen's speed was rapid. In fact, it mentioned how his explosive speed within a small area was absurdly quick. However, he never paid it any attention. No matter how fast Yi Shiwen was, there should be a limit to his speed. There was nothing to be afraid about. However, after seeing Yi Shiwen attacking for the first time, he realized how wrong he was. He had made a grave mistake. Yi Zaiwen's explosive speed within a small area was tremendously horrifying. This speed made even his eyes go dizzy. He even thought that Yi Shiwen had teleported. The information is faulty. He didn't know that Yi Zaiwen's strength was much different compared to when he was challenging the retribution. When Yi Shiwen had just ascended the transcendent realm, the head of the dim shadow 10 extremities would quickly kill him. In fact, he would be able to deal with multiple Yi Shiwen at the same time. Now he could only retract his blade and use it to block his front. Clank. A crisp, clear sound of metal clashing resounded. Yi Zaiwen's longsword broke through space and touched the demonic blade. Boom! The head of the dim shadow 10 extremities could only feel the vast amount of majestic qi being released from Yi Shiwen. The qi caused his hands to tremble with tremendous speed. Bang! Veins popped up from his arm, and it started vibrating fanatically. The Higu acupoint, one on his hand, burst apart and shattered by the vast qi. His blood splattered everywhere. He tried his best to suppress his arm that was trembling nonstop. However, it was to no avail. The strength was too horrifying. He never expected one's strength to be so horrifying to this extent. This is a beast in human's clothing. Could he really be a beast? Most importantly, he fathomed both the path where people break through everything with brute force and the path where people break through everything with speed alone. However, he had never heard of someone with extreme brute force that was extremely quick and agile as well. In his mind, this was something unachievable. If Yi Shiwen knew what he was thinking, Yi Shiwen would sneer at him. The two might seem unrelated at all, and even seemed like conflicting aspects of martial arts theory. However, they complemented each other. Anyone that studied middle school would know the theory of gravity accelerating the speed of an object. Even if one wanted to break through everything with brute force, they wouldn't hit anyone without sufficient speed. As a result, their strength would be worthless. On the contrary, if there was sufficient speed, it could even increase the force contained within this attack. It would even increase the power of the attack by 20%. If one only had speed and wasn't strong enough, he wouldn't even break through one's defense even if he reached his target. He could forget about killing his enemy. If one wanted to take one of these two paths to the extreme, they would have to use both simultaneously. Otherwise, they would reach a bottleneck and wouldn't be able to move forward. Coincidentally, no matter if it was strength or speed, Yi Zaiwen's physical body could utilize both to the maximum. This was the truly terrifying part about him. Before the dim shadow 10 extremities head could stop his hands from trembling, the demonic sword was knocked away. Without waiting for him to be surprised, Yi Zaiwen's next attack had already reached his neck. Splat! Blood was flowing everywhere. Yi Zaiwen's sword intent had already passed through his throat. The dim shadow 10 extremities had had his eyes wide open. Even until death, he never understood how he died and how he died so quickly. He didn't even manage to block 2 attacks from Yi Shiwen. Big brother. The other 9 members of the dim shadow 10 extremities cried out tragically. Their eyes were crimson red. Little brat, how dare you kill our big brother? The demonic blades in their hands waved around much more quickly, and their blades seemed to have covered the entire area up. It was unknown how many innocent people had died by their blades. In fact, some of the residues of their spirits were still lingering by the blades. When the blades covered the entire area, the whole area seemed to have turned into hell itself. Numerous innocent souls were crying in agony. Don't worry. I'll let all of you meet him soon. Yi Zaiwen's expression became colder and colder. The dim shadow 10 extremities had done numerous misdeeds, and should be put to death. He wouldn't even hesitate to kill all of them. Among the dim shadow 10 extremities, their head was the strongest. He was already in the Transcendent Realm first level peak. However, without a transcendent tool, he pales in comparison to the 8 Stars School's Great Elder and the others. Even if the others among the group had experienced significant improvement in their cultivations, they were merely above average. They were still much more different compared to Yi Shiwen. Splash! 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 Every time Yi Shiwen attacked, blood would be splattered. Yi Shiwen just killed their spirit off very precisely without any hesitation or delays. This was Yi Zaiwen's current strength. Very quickly, the dim shadow 10 extremities had all perished by Yi Zaiwen's hands. Yi Shiwen dispersed the sword intent in his hand. To him, this wasn't a challenging matter at all. Using his sword was much different compared to using his fist. His fist bears an overbearing amount of power, and it was very mighty. It was able to break through the skies and the earth, and caused numerous phenomena to appear simultaneously. Every time he punched with his fist, a part of the space would collapse. His sword was being developed to a more simplified state. Every time he attacked with his sword, his speed would be rapid. Yi Shiwen harbored both the attributes of breaking through everything with brute force and breaking through everything with speed. His fist art and his sword art represented the 2 extremities. None of them could be classified as being more potent than the other. After all, they were all used to complement each other. If necessary, his sword art could also achieve an overbearing amount of strength, and could even cause the world to crumble. Martial arts' fundamental was the will. In his current condition, he didn't have to dwell too much on that principle anymore. The news of Yi Shiwen killing off everyone from the dim shadow 10 extremities was spread around very quickly, and caused another uproar within the ancient battlefield. Although the dim shadow 10 extremities weren't considered considerable force within the ancient battlefield, they were much more robust than some regular forces. In fact, other than the overlord factions, even a huge faction like the true martial school might not be able to deal with them. After all, not every single expert from the true martial school came here. Even so, it was apparent how horrifying the dim shadow 10 extremities was. However, such a tyrant among the stray cultivators had all perished by Yi Zaiwen's hands. They didn't even have the chance to retaliate. Someone had gone ahead to inspect the location where the battle occurred. They didn't find any traces of an intense battle happening. The victory was just decided in an instant. After this was deducted, it made Yi Shiwen shine even more. Many stray individual cultivators that were inferior to the dim shadow 10 extremities in terms of strength had already decided to retreat. If someone so strong like the dim shadow 10 extremities had perished under the hands of Yi Shiwen, they would never stand a chance. Upon having this thought, they could only give up. How is Yi Shiwen so strong? What kind of martial arts had he cultivated? He's so strong that he's horrifying. Such combat prowess is already comparable to those sect masters already, right? That should be impossible. I heard that he had just ascended the Transcendent Realm a few years ago. How can he be an expert comparable to a sect master? If that's not the case, there's no way of explaining how he's so strong. In fact, he fought 10 of them alone. Other than having the strength of a sect master, there are no other explanations to it. Just as the outside world was discussing, the 3 overlords had increased the bounty rewards once more. They had increased the rewards by threefolds. When the news about it came out, many people who were planning on retreating felt like challenging Yi Shiwen once more. 1 http://www.acupuncture.com/education/points/large intestine/Li4. HTM. Chapter 8:13. Turning the tables. Those rewards were already alluring enough to begin with. They only stopped after realizing how strong Yi Shiwen was, and dared not to make rash actions anymore. After all, everyone among the dim Shadow 10 extremities was massacred, and none remained alive. Compared to someone as strong as the dim Shadow 10 extremities, they were practically nothing. However, the situation was now different. The bounty rewards had increased by threefolds. It wasn't as simple as 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. Instead, the rewards had practically been increased tenfold. Many people felt that they were decent enough, and some thought that they were worthy assassins. All of them were now aiming for Yi Shiwen. In only the short span of a month, Yi Shiwen had been ambushed 13 times. There were more than 37 Transcendent Realm experts in total. All of them were stray individual cultivators. In fact, some people were as strong as the sect masters from the Overlord factions. They were already considered top-notch even among the stray cultivators, and Yi Shiwen couldn't deal with them easily. After causing the skies and earth to rupture, only did he manage to kill them. Due to the battles, Yi Ziwen's name had truly shaken throughout the ancient battlefield. Initially, many people only assumed that he was as strong as a sect master. After all, his performance had proved such assumptions. Although they weren't aware of what kind of methods or encounters Yi Shiwen had faced for such an alarming increase in his combat prowess, he was undoubtedly among one of the most prominent experts beneath the starry skies. However, things weren't over just like that. The three overlords hated Yi Shiwen to the core and wouldn't let him go at all. They then doubled the bounty rewards once more, which caused the entire ancient battlefield to be in a ruckus. Aren't they just trying to make him dead? In a field of wilderness, miasma filled the entire area. After killing another batch of experts, Yi Shiwen finally realized that things shouldn't go on like this anymore. Yi Shiwen, this can't keep going on. Otherwise, it'll be endless. Don't forget why you came to this ancient battlefield, said Yi Mo as a reminder. Yi Shiwen nodded. Indeed, his intentions for coming here was the same as others, which was locating the pathway that leads to the ancient Baron's continent. The only exception he had from others was he could advance to the ancient Baron's continent through the demon domain. However, that would require many twists and turns that nobody was aware of. Besides, the danger within was of no joke. If he weren't forced to, he definitely wouldn't walk through that path. He had previously chosen to do so because he had no other methods of accessing that continent. Now that there was new hope, he didn't want to be adventurous anymore. However, if he were to be continuously trapped by the outer area, his loss would be much more significant than his gains. The reason why the three Overlord factions didn't choose to take action themselves was that a large batch of their troops was venturing deep within the ancient battlefield. According to the rumors, they had acquired some hints and located some clues of the pathway. Yi Shiwen didn't want to fall behind the others. He had to change the situation around. If that's the case, go ahead and kill them. Since they don't want you to be at peace, you don't have to let go of them as well, said Yi Mo in a sinister tone as he narrowed his eyes. Do you mean kill them at the place where they're stationed at? Said Yi Shiwen. That's right. No rule implies that they're only allowed to kill you, and you aren't allowed to refute. Yi Mo chuckled. If an outsider heard it, they might have been frightened to death. Ordinary people would choose to avoid the Overlord forces no matter what, and dare not provoke them at all. However, Yi Mo was a different kind of person. If he were at his prime, he wouldn't even put them in his eyes. Even stepping across them to death would be a waste of time. He had been by the Demon King's side for billions of years, and already had the demeanor of being afraid of nothing in the world. There were only things where he couldn't think of, and nothing he couldn't do. Upon hearing Yi Mo's suggestion, Yi Shiwen was a little convinced. Yi Mo was someone that wasn't afraid of anything. As Yi Shiwen remained together with Yi Mo for a long time, he was gradually influenced, and his bravery had increased by a large margin. He had previously thought of killing the enemies at their base. However, they had too many experts, and it would be troublesome to fight against experts that rival the strength of a sect master. The experts with the strength comparable to a sect master were already considered the peak experts beneath the starry skies. He had only managed to ascend to such a realm through various methods. Beneath the starry skies, everyone's strength was limited to the transcendent realm first-level peak. No one was able to break through it. After all, the laws of this area had limited their cultivation. However, there was a disparity in strength even among the transcendent realm first-level peak experts. The strong could kill the weak in an instant. In this case, the Star Beast avatar held a massive advantage over others. Its bloodline had already indicated that it would be the natural monarch among those in the same realm as it. No matter if it was chi, physical body, magical power, martial arts, and other factors, it was more potent than others. Together with the demon wings, phoenix regeneration technique, and many other martial arts, along with the Tianyuan mirror's complement, it would easily acquire a sect master level expert's combat prowess. There definitely wouldn't be just one or two sect master level experts within the Overlord forces. If he were surrounded by more than one of them, he would be in deep trouble. Of course, if his original body were to ascend to the same realm as well, he would be able to neglect these people. Compared to the Star Beast avatar that relied on its talents and bloodline, Yi Zaiwen's original body was much more robust and fearsome. Fighting someone above his cultivation realm was as easy as eating or drinking for him. Of course, the experience and hardships he would have to go through far surpass what ordinary people have to go through. However, it was now different. A large batch of their experts had already ventured deep into the ancient battlefield and wasn't at the outer areas. He could use this chance to ambush them. The other worry he had was the overlords involving the true martial school with their wrath. It would be fine if it were only Yi Shiwen alone. He could go wherever he wanted to. However, the true martial school couldn't do so. You don't have to worry. Every overlord forces had brought along 30 to 40 transcendent realm experts. Previously, more than 10 of them had already perished, and you killed another batch of them. There are only 20 plus of them remaining now. At most, they would be as strong as the true martial school. They wouldn't risk themselves to attack the true martial school. They can't dispatch experts from their main camp since their main camp is considered their foundations. They definitely wouldn't let go of it, explained Yemo, as if he already knew of Yi Zaiwen's worries. Yi Shiwen thought for a while, and found it to be entirely truthful. If he could destroy the Overlord's base, it would deal a tremendous blow to their arrogance. The strength of a sect depends on how many transcendent realm experts they had. If the Overlord faction's transcendent realm experts hold no advantage over the true martial school, they wouldn't display their advantages in other factors. This also implied that they would be restricted. Destroy one of them, and let the other two factions be wary. After all, it's impossible for him to cause havoc in all three of their bases. An Overlord faction that hurt its foundations might not pose a huge threat to the true martial school. But three factions working together would destroy the true martial school. You're right. Aren't they searching for my whereabouts? Then let me go up to them personally, said Yi Shiwen with a sneer. The 8-star school base was built on a flat land, and they had built a small-sized city here. Many experts from the 8-star school were inside here, and almost all of them were in the Great Sage realm. Those that were beneath the Great Sage realm dare not even enter. Otherwise, they would be dissolved by the miasma present here. Its outer areas had also become the gathering spots for numerous individual cultivators or martial warriors from some small factions. They built their camps there while being dependent on the 8-star school. Although the 8-star school might exploit them, they would receive the 8-star school's protection in crucial moments. The advantages and disadvantages were all mixed here. It just depended on what people prefer. Martial warriors were going in and out near the gathering spots. In fact, transcendent realm experts would also be occasionally seen going in and out. Overall, this place was considered tranquil. If the martial warriors weren't cultivating, they would be preparing to go out. Old dogs of the 8-star school, come out and die. A loud yell resounded from afar and gradually came closer. In almost an instant, it reached one of the land's areas. At the end of the road, a green silhouette wielding a sword could slowly be seen. A teenager with a 20-years-old appearance was slowly striding forward. He inexplicably drew everyone's curiosity. Every time he took a step forward, everyone's hearts would tremble. Who's this? How does he dare to act so arrogantly in front of the 8-star school's city? Someone asked, confused. It should be known that this wasn't the base of some small factions. This was the base of the 8-star school, one of the overlord factions. There were quite an amount of supreme experts, as well as transcendent realm experts here. To a majority of them, this person was entering a lion's den. He must be ignorant of fear, to have the bravery to rush into here. Right, he still dares to act so arrogantly. Does he want to die? Could he be Yi Shiwen? That's right, that is Yi Shiwen. My eyes won't be mistaken. That's impossible. The 3 overlords are causing him troubles everywhere, and yet he dares to appear? He's truly not afraid of death. Although the other overlords never said anything, they were still willing to watch the situation unfold. According to the rumors, during the True Martial School's Supreme Schoolmaster's Ascension Ceremony, Yi Shiwen had shamed these overlord factions once. Many wished to see True Martial School suffer. If I were him, I would have hidden in a place where no one could find me. After the commotion had passed, only would I come out. Which is why you would never ascend the transcendent realm. We martial art warriors are already defying the heavens by cultivating. If we didn't have the heart to move forward, how can we reach the supreme realm of cultivation? Chapter 8:14. Wipe out the base. The wolf cub was following Yi Shiwen by his side. Currently, it was running faster than anything. Yi Ziwen's shout surprised the 8-star school's experts by the city. All of them took out their martial instruments and stared at Yi Shiwen coldly. More than 10 great sage realm experts had appeared. This was also because there was no much time for preparation. Otherwise, more experts would emerge sooner or later. The 8-star school was one of the extraterrestrial overlord forces, and it was apparent how sturdy their foundations were. Let's go. He's Yi Shiwen, let's kill him. Those experts instantly formed a formation. They were all aware that they were still considered weak despite being an almighty great sage when facing a transcendent realm expert. They were just as vulnerable as an infant. The only way to handle this matter was to form a formation to hold Yi Shiwen back and await the transcendent realm experts to dispose of Yi Shiwen. These experts were stepping on a profound formation, and their aura transformed. It didn't feel like they were humans, but instead the entire world. The best thing about this formation was this ability to utilize the world's power to its biggest extent. Yi Shiwen didn't even bother turning back and barged into their formation. He just let the formation circulate by his side, and didn't even bother moving. Die. A great sage couldn't hold it in anymore, and took action first. His long saber pierced through the air, and unleashed 8 stars royalty severing saber. Although the 8 stars school's lost technique wasn't just this technique alone. The 8 stars royalty severing saber was the most learned lost technique within the school. He unleashed 8 saber shadows to the sky full of starlights. They transformed into 8 stars to hunt Yi Shiwen down. At this moment, the longsword in Yi Ziwen's hand moved. The longsword materialized through his sword intent instantly moved, and rays of brilliance shone. All the saber lights that enveloped the sky shattered in an instant. The sword light of the longsword didn't come to a stop. Instead, with its unstoppable momentum, it struck towards the great sage. Halt! Seeing how Yi Shiwen was about to start a massacre, the other great sages yelled in panic. The power of the entire formation circulated, and the saber lights that was about to be shattered by the sword light was reinforced. In almost an instant, those great sages gathered their power on the great sage that was attacking. However, because of the disparity in strength, they weren't able to kill Yi Shiwen off, especially when he had the combat prowess on par with the sect master. The difference between the great sage realm and the transcendent realm was huge. Even if regular transcendent realm experts were considered, Yi Ziwen's second attack instantly arrived. His speed was rapid. He seemed to have unleashed his second attack the moment he unleashed his first. However, that wasn't the case. Yi Zaiwen's first attack had merely been blocked, which was why he launched another attack. However, the speed of his second attack was rapid. He didn't even use more than 30% of his full force when executing the first attack. As a result, the second attack seemed like it came right after the first attack, and the illusion where two sword attacks were unleashed at the same time had occurred. Although it seemed simple, only people as strong as Yi Shiwen would be able to pull it out. The longsword seemed to have pierced through space and appeared in front of the great sage, who was attacking. With a splash, the longsword pierced through his throat, and blood splattered everywhere. Even his spirit was shattered in an instant. He instantly stopped breathing. He was too weak to be fighting against Yi Shiwen. He wouldn't even be able to harm Yi Shiwen. Attack! We must hold him back and not let him flee. As long as we manage to hold him back, it would be considered a grand accomplishment, yelled a great sage realm elder. He was an elder within the 8 Stars sect. Of course, his position wasn't comparable to those transcendent realm elders. Flee? If that's the case, all of you don't have to worry. Without killing everyone here, I won't be leaving, said Yi Shiwen with a sneer. Arrogant. Such arrogance. All of the great sage realm experts berated Yi Shiwen. Their long sabers cut through the skies and formed 8 constellations. Every single constellation was surging with starlights. Numerous spiritual energies were instantly absorbed within and swooshed downwards towards Yi Shiwen. These people were experienced in battle. They had fought together for numerous years. Although they attacked very rashly, they still worked together flawlessly. In almost an instant, they had blocked away all of Yi Zaiwen's path of retreat. They wanted to prevent Yi Shiwen from escaping. Yi Shiwen sneered. He had never intended to escape. These were all unnecessary. The battle formation laid down by these great sage realm experts was quite impressive. Even Yi Shiwen felt a little pressured. However, he was merely feeling a little pressure. He immediately swung the long sword in his hand, and numerous intense sword lights exploded. They covered the entire sky, and went against the descending saber shadows. Clank! 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 The intense sound released by the sword light and the saber lights clashing against each other resounded continuously. A stalemate happened for a little while before the sword lights wiped out all of the saber lights with its destructive force. An even more ferocious sword light radiated from Yi Zaiwen's longsword. He unleashed his attack indifferently. Pft, pft, pft. The sound of a longsword cutting through flesh was at every corner. With only one sword, a great sage would perish by the blade after encountering it. Even their spirits were shattered into half. For the Star Beast avatar, great sages were already considered nothing, even if these great sages were the elites among the great sages. After a short while, all of the great sages were dead. They weren't even able to contend against Yi Shiwen. Hey, didn't I tell you to leave 2 of them to me? Said the wolf cub in a frustrated manner. Its actions made it seem unsatisfied. He wasn't able to keep up with Yi Shiwen. Whenever Yi Shiwen attacked, he would kill his enemy in an instant. The wolf club couldn't even catch up at all. Maybe it could still catch up to Yi Zaiwen's main body. However, it definitely wouldn't be able to do so with the Star Beast avatar, which had already ascended the transcendent realm. Why are you so anxious? We're here to kill everyone in the 8 Stars school. There will be enough people for you to kill. Yi Shiwen said indifferently. He then entered the city with the wolf club closely following after him. It was afraid that Yi Shiwen would kill everyone here, and leave no one to it. This Yi Shiwen intends to kill everyone in the 8 Stars school? How is that possible? He's too arrogant. Many people heard Yi Zaiwen's words, but dare not come close to him. They were whispering among themselves. What's so strange about it? 4 top-notch experts, the number of enemies present wouldn't matter at all. He alone can kill all of them. However, even if many of the 8 Stars school had left, there's still a huge amount of Transcendent Realm experts remaining here. Isn't he just being too arrogant? Yi Shiwen was a hot topic. Everyone looked at him like they were looking at an ancient god of killing. Although they were aware of Yi Zaiwen's origins, their impression towards him still remained when the extraterrestrial overlord's forces were still hunting him down. As such, many people from the ancient battlefield were scornful towards him. They never expected such a scene to happen. when he indeed appeared in front of them. The great sage experts of the 8 Stars School were already considered elites to them, and yet Yi Shiwen tore through them like it was nothing. It should be known that the great sages allowed to enter the ancient battlefield were elites even among the great sages. In the previous battle, even the weakest one was in the great sage late realm, and there were even a few in the great sage great perfection realm. And yet, such experts were all butchered cleanly like Yi Shiwen. It happened so quickly that no one was able to react to what had happened. Everyone felt a chill down their spine. They now understood what Yi Shiwen wanted to do. Although they were shocked by his madness, they were slightly excited to watch it as well. They wanted to see if Yi Shiwen could create a miracle and do something even they couldn't do. Yi Shiwen and the wolf cub entered the city. Many experts of the 8 Stars School had received the alerting news and were rushing towards his location. Yi Shiwen, how dare you show up again? You're truly not afraid of death. Then, today shall mark the day of your death. A half-step transcendent realm expert suddenly yelled in anger and lunged himself towards Yi Shiwen. His long saber that was as brilliant as the galaxy came crashing down towards Yi Shiwen, with the intention to kill. Yi Shiwen didn't even bother looking at the saber. He raised his long sword and shot a sword aura outwards, which instantly caused the saber light to shatter. That 8 Stars School's expert in the half-step transcendent realm suddenly broke out in cold sweat. He suddenly remembered that Yi Shiwen was a transcendent realm expert, and he was merely just in the half-step transcendent realm. Even an average transcendent realm expert was able to kill him off casually. In fact, Yi Shiwen was an extremely ruthless person, capable of killing experts on par with the sect master. Weren't you complaining that I didn't leave anyone for you? How about this one? Said Yi Shiwen plainly to the wolf cub. He didn't even pay any attention to the half-step transcendent realm expert, and wasn't even afraid of him hearing the conversation. The previous martial art warriors were all in the great sage realm, and the wolf cub holds no interest in them. However, the situation is different now. An expert in the half-step transcendent late realm was extremely beneficial to the wolf cub. For the wolf cub, who was currently in the half-step transcendent intermediate peak realm, and could improve with just a little push, its target was appropriate. Haha, leave it to me. The wolf cub growled excitedly and lunged itself towards the half-step transcendent late realm expert. The half-step transcendent late realm expert's face turned pale. Yi Ziwen's words made it seem like he was just some kind of trash discarded to the wolf cub. Go die, you animal. The half-step transcendent late realm expert felt like he had just survived from a calamity. After understanding why Yi Shiwen had let him go, he instantly felt like he was being ridiculed. Do they think that a half-step transcendent intermediate realm animal could win me? He was instantly enraged after learning about it. Chapter 8:15. Heating up the situation. On the one hand, he felt a little lucky. On the other hand, he felt exceptionally shameful, especially for someone like him. Although he wasn't a transcendent realm expert, he lived a luxurious life within the 8 Stars School. Applying such disdain towards him was far worse than killing him. Animal? With that statement alone, I shall let you experience death, old man. Killing intent flickered within the wolf cub's eyes. The half-step transcendent late realm expert and the wolf cub both held their pride. Yi Ziwen's intentions for handing the half-step transcendent late realm expert to the wolf cub was clear as day. That was for the wolf cub to use the half-step transcendent late realm expert as a polishing stone, to allow the wolf cub to ascend to the half-step transcendent late realm. When that time comes, with its exceptional bloodline, it would easily become unparalleled among those beneath the transcendent realm. The wolf cub opened his mouth and sucked the spiritual energy permeating the air into his mouth with lightning speed. A thick beam of light pillar was then abruptly shot outwards, wiping out everything in its path. The half-step transcendent late realm expert wasn't able to react to it, and the beam of light shot through his arm. With a tragic scream, his entire arm was blasted to bits by the light pillar. An unsuppressible surprise was written in his eyes. He never expected a half-step transcendent late realm animal to have the capabilities of harming him. A half-step transcendent late realm expert. How terrifying is this animal? This half-step transcendent intermediate realm wolf demon isn't as simple as he looks. As for Yi Shiwen, he didn't care about the battle occurring behind him any longer. He believed that the wolf cub could deal with it on its own. He rushed into the inner city, with many martial warriors nearby accompanying him. They were merely here to witness the outcome. They desired to witness what sort of situation would unfold. At this moment, the Transcendent Realm experts finally arrived. The one in the lead was a youthful-looking adult veteran with snow-white hair. His gaze, when staring at Yi Shiwen, was ice-cold. His horrifying aura rushed towards Yi Shiwen, and engulfed Yi Shiwen within. Yi Ziwen's entire body was continually trembling as if he was a little boat floating upon a stormy sea, prone to be flipped over by the raging waves. However, no matter how hard the old man tried, Yi Shiwen did not falter at all. Yi Shiwen, such courage you possess. You even dare to come to us yourself. Do you truly think no one in our 8 Stars sect can deal with you? Today you shall pay for it, roared the old man in the lead. Isn't that the remaining old sect master of the 8 Stars school? Gosh, I never expected him to be still alive, and even came here as well, said someone in disbelief as he identified the old man. According to the rumors, he disappeared after passing the sect master position to their current sect master. I never expected him to appear here. No wonder why the 8 Stars school could dispatch such a huge batch of experts away without any worries. Such an ancient being is still alive. Are you sure about it? That's impossible, right? Said someone, still in disbelief. How can I see it wrongly? It's him, all right. I've also seen his portrait before. Only, I have never seen him personally myself, said that person in an unresigned manner as he refuted. Yi Shiwen smiled as he looked at the 8 Stars school's old sect master, and smiled coldly. Someone in the 8 Stars sect can stand up against me? Why didn't I see anyone capable of doing so during my walk to here? Yi Ziwen's words startled everyone, and they were instantly humored. Yi Shiwen was thoroughly shaming the 8 Stars school, and never held them in high regard at all. He even emphasized on how no one in the 8 Stars school could deal with him. Most importantly, he even changed fighting his way to here, to walking to here. This implied that the 8 Stars school's people were too weak. After all, to him, walking in here was no different from walking in other places. However, due to the 8 Stars school's demeanor, they didn't dare to act too out of bounds, and could only hold in their laughter. Upon hearing Yi Ziwen's words, the 8 Stars school's old sect master's face instantly turned pale, and his eyes became red. He was suddenly filled with the desire to kill Yi Shiwen, and tear him to pieces. Experts usually wouldn't display any emotions on their face. Just like how people wouldn't reveal any emotions to mere ants, experts wouldn't do so to people weaker than them. However, if it were against people on par with them, they wouldn't be so calm anymore because they knew that someone on par with them could threaten themselves. Although Yi Ziwen's bounty had increased continuously during this period, countless Transcendent Realm experts had perished under Yi Ziwen's hands. Among them even included someone with the strength on par of a sect master. And yet, all of them weren't Yi Ziwen's opponent. Ultimately, it also made everyone understand just how strong Yi Shiwen was. At the very least, he was someone on par with a sect master. Someone that shouldn't be underestimated. Yi Shiwen, you're too arrogant. The 8 Stars school's old sect master was enraged. Even if I'm arrogant, can it be worse than you guys? The bounty for me is so high that even I was interested in the rewards. I even wanted to tie myself up and come claim the bounty rewards myself, said Yi Shiwen scornfully. The overlord forces were too used to being domineering. No matter how out of bounds their actions were, they wouldn't even think of it as something wrong. However, if someone made a small action, it would be considered arrogant in their eyes. Today, I shall kill everyone in the 8 Stars school, and nobody shall save all of you. Such boldness. Aren't you afraid that we would do the same to your true martial school? Said the old sect master as he stared at Yi Shiwen intently. Are you even capable of doing so? Yi Shiwen had thought of this long ago. Naturally, he wouldn't react to the old sect master's threats. Then die. The 8 Stars school's old sect master smiled coldly, and launched his fist forward. He wasn't using the 8 Stars royalty-shattering saber anymore. He was using another lost technique. The all-encompassing fist intent surged and almost destroyed the entire world. Dark black tyrant fist. The entire world turned dark. The dark element released from his fist intent enveloped the space, and enveloped the entire cosmos. His combat prowess was exceptionally high, worthy to be classified as one of the top-notch experts beneath the starry skies. Yi Shiwen also made his move. However, he did not unsheath his sword. Instead, he just launched his fist forward. The majestic fist power displayed the phenomena of a star, and went up against the dark element. The entire world seemed like it was about to be destroyed. Boom! An intense clash happened, and storms instantly surged out, expanding outwards towards its surroundings. When the storm dissipated, everyone looked towards the clash's location, only to find the 8 Stars School's old school leader breathing heavily with an ashen expression. With only one exchange of blows, it seemed to have drained him of all his energy. Disbelief filled his eyes, as he couldn't believe that Yi Shiwen could render him to this state. He only knew of Yi Zaiwen's name not long after the matters that happened during the true martial school master ascension ceremony. At that time, Yi Shiwen was someone that had only ascended to the transcendent realm as according to the reports. He was utterly negligible. However, he never expected Yi Shiwen to grow so much during the past few years. It was already considered outstanding for someone to ascend to the transcendent realm at his age. However, becoming a top-notch expert on par with the old sect master was considered a miraculous feat, especially with Yi Zaiwen's age. And yet it happened. It made the old sect master extremely baffled. Although his combat prowess was high, Yi Shiwen didn't pale in comparison in terms of strength and cultivation. Besides, Yi Shiwen was still a youth. During their current clash, the benefits of youth were in full display. The 8 Stars School's old school leader was too old. While he might not have any problems dealing with other people, he was too old in the face of such a youthful expert like Yi Shiwen, brimming with vigor. Yi Shiwen held his hands tightly, and the golden divinity instantly clad his entire body. Facing a transcendent realm first-level expert with the strength of a sect master, he had to go all out. Otherwise, he might be the one who dies. He didn't hesitate any further and instantly rushed towards the 8 Stars School's old school leader. His fist transformed into 2 massive stars, and the shattered star fist immediately landed, displaying a horrifying might. Yi Zaiwen's action was swift. His divinity had already locked onto the 8 Stars School's old sect master firmly, and gave the old sect master no room to escape. Now the old sect master could only go head-to-head against Yi Shiwen. Otherwise, if he turned around to flee, he might be crushed by Yi Shiwen. This was the so-called momentum. Under the colossal momentum, one was forced to either forcefully go against it or go along. However, momentum wasn't on his side now and was instead with Yi Shiwen. Usually, such a situation would only occur when the fight went smoothly. However, the momentum of the battle was decided when Yi Shiwen had just attacked. Such an act was incredibly unbelievable, and something he had never thought of before. Boom! Both of their fists clashed against each other fiercely once more. The all-encompassing darkness and starlights clashed and devoured each other in the air, as if 2 surges of horrifying power capable of annihilating the world had fought against each other. The 8 Stars School's old school leader's face turned even paler. However, Yi Shiwen didn't have any intention of stopping. Without giving the old sect master any chance to recover, he immediately rushed forward, raised his fist, and unleashed another barrage of attack. Boom! 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 The two instantly traded hundreds of blows. Crack! A crisp sound of bone cracking resounded as the 8 Stars School's old sect master's right arm was forcefully broken apart by Yi Shiwen, and his arm started limping. At this moment, his expression was already ashen, and his entire body was in a sorry state. All of his hair had turned pale white, and wrinkles appeared throughout his body, with age spots accompanying it. Through the previous exchange of blows, the old sect master's remaining few vigors were consumed thoroughly. Let's end this. Yi Shiwen yelled as his fist traversed through the sky and fiercely landed on the 8 Star School's old sect master's chest. Bang! The 8 Star School's old sect master spat out a mouthful of blood. His chest caved inwards, and he immediately lost his life. Everyone spectating the fight let out a gasp of surprise. Does he want to stir up another commotion again? Chapter 8:16. Everyone becoming speechless. Everyone was startled. Does he want to stir up a commotion again? The 8 Stars School's old sect master was butchered in front of everyone. There wasn't any battle that lasted for a few days, like how they imagined. Instead, Yi Shiwen had gained the upper hand since its start and killed the 8 Stars School's old school leader in the end. During their fight, the advantage of youth over an old man was in full display. After all, the old sect master was already old to begin with, and his vigor wasn't comparable to Yi Shiwen at all. The battle was exceptionally intense, which resulted in the consumption of vigor 100 times higher than usual. At such a rate, it allowed Yi Shiwen to take the opportunity to land a killing blow. Ultimately, Yi Shiwen killed the old sect master. In the path of martial warriors, most youth would have a higher chance of improving themselves. The older they got, the lesser the possibility of improvement. Compared to this 8 Stars School's old school leader who had lived for thousands of years, Yi Shiwen, who was only more than 100 years old, was considered too young. Even among the Sage Realm and Great Sage Realm experts, he was considered to be young. The Transcendent Realms slightly older than him, like Huang Wuji, were also at least 1,000 years old. Yi Shiwen excels in seizing his opponent's weakness and unleashing a barrage of attacks through that particular weakness. No one was able to handle such an impact, which was why Yi Shiwen was able to wipe out everyone obstructing his path. Old Sect Master. Curses! You infidel! Seeing Yi Shiwen killing the old sect master, all the 8 Stars School experts had their eyes reddened. The desire to tear Yi Shiwen apart surged strongly within them. Yi Ziwen's expression remained unfazed as if he had merely done something insignificant. Ever since the 8 Stars School had been continuously dispatching people to kill him, they were destined to fight to the death. If he didn't make them cower by continuously killing them, the hunting for Yi Shiwen would never stop. At this moment, more than 10 Transcendent Realm experts within the city appeared and unleashed their attacks. They were all 8 Stars School experts that remained to guard their base. Currently, they were all lunging themselves towards Yi Shiwen. Although they were all experts within the Transcendent Realm first level, they weren't even comparable to the old sect master, let alone Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen die. The 8 Stars School's Transcendent Realm experts had their eyes covered in bloody veins, and their all-encompassing saber lights came slashing down at Yi Shiwen. Every single saber light could easily slash a half-step Transcendent Realm expert in half, not to mention the saber lights that enveloped the entire sky that was pouring down on him like rain. Everyone spectating felt a chill down their spine as if they had seen something unbelievable. The spectators were all taking shelter in the 8 Stars School's base. In fact, none of them were Transcendent Realm experts. The first time they witnessed the Transcendent Realm experts' attacks, they were baffled by the Transcendent Realm experts' horrifying might. With such attacks, even Yi Shiwen wouldn't be able to withstand it, no matter how strong he is, right? After all, it's only him alone. Clang! With a clear resonance of the sword, a sword light that soared through the sky gushed out from Yi Ziwen's body. Every single pore of his was releasing sword chi, which ultimately condensed into a terrifying massive sword in the air. With the terrifying sword radiance emitting from its body, it instantly came slashing horizontally. It came crashing towards the all-encompassing sword lights. Boom! 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 Sounds of huge explosions resounded from the clash of the sword light and the saber light. The two of them seemed to be brawling against each other, refusing to compromise with each other. A large light sphere formed in mid-air, which transformed into countless terrifying energy spheres. Bringing along all the sand particles in its path, numerous energy spheres expanded outwards. This was the result of the oppression between the two extremely horrifying attacks. Within the light sphere, Yi Ziwen's sword was dyed with a layer of gold radiance, which increased its might. By crushing it horizontally, the all-encompassing sword lights started to crack inches by inches. With a boom, all the sword lights were instantly shattered apart. Those Transcendent Realm experts couldn't withstand the horrifying pressure of the sword any longer. The pressure felt like a mountain that was crushing them. Before the attack even landed, they had the urge to spit their blood out. Clang! 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 The sword might split itself into dozens of sword lights, and went into pursuit. Poof! 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 All the Transcendent Realm experts immediately exploded and turned into a pool of blood. All of their defense was laughable in the face of Yi Zaiwen's sword light. Blood-colored radiance started flickering from Yi Zaiwen's body, and the pools of blood were all absorbed by him. These were the blood essence of Transcendent Realm experts, which were extremely scarce. Yi Shiwen retracted his focus and realized that the wolf cub was running towards him. However, Wolf Cub's expression wasn't carefree anymore. Instead, he looked extremely messy. On its black fur, bloody fleshes could be seen. There were even wounds so deep that its bones were visible. The pain was so great that Wolf Cub gritted its teeth. It seemed like a half-step transcendent late realm expert wasn't someone it could defeat easily. However, Yi Shiwen could feel the vague transformation in the wolf's aura. It was a sign of evolution. Although the battle was tough, after tending to its wounds and entering close cultivation once more, it might become a half-step transcendent late realm expert. When the time comes, it wouldn't even be far from ascending the transcendent realm. Yi Shiwen instantly felt speechless. Such speed of cultivation was already much faster than his main body. Looking at Yi Shiwen noticing its wounds, the wolf cub gritted its teeth and said, "What are you looking at? I merely suffered from a negligible wound. That bastard was torn apart by me." Negligible? Yi Shiwen was speechless against the wolf cub that was acting tough. Yi Shiwen quickly shifted his state of mind, and his eyes became ice cold. He said, "Everyone from the 8 Stars School, don't even think about leaving here alive today." On that day, blood flowed in the 8 Stars School's base like a river, with corpses littered everywhere. Everyone in the 8 Stars School was slain by Yi Shiwen, with no one able to escape. However, other than the 8 Stars School's experts, Yi Shiwen did not kill anyone else. Yi Shiwen did not kill the stray cultivators that were being dependent on the 8 Stars School. They could only watch Yi Shiwen leave. The corpses of the 8 Stars School's experts were all over the place and looked incredibly tragic. Everyone could only say one sentence in shock. He startled everyone in the heaven and earth. Not long after Yi Shiwen left, the news of Yi Shiwen wiping out the 8 Stars School's base was quickly spread around the ancient battlefield and caused an uproar. Previously, Yi Shiwen was already considered famous. No matter if it was his act of killing everyone from the dim shadow 10 extremities, or even slaying a sect master level expert, it already made his name renowned. However, most people didn't pay it much attention. After all, no matter how strong Yi Shiwen was, he was still hiding from the oppression of the 3 overlord factions, cowering in fear. Yi Shiwen could only use attrition tactics against them. He had never fought against them head-on at all. And yet this time, he had killed everyone in the 8 Stars School's base. The thought of one person killing everyone within an overlord force's base was enough to make one go crazy and cause their blood to boil. When news about Yi Zaiwen's feat was spread around, it truly shocked everyone in the ancient battlefield. It swept out, just like a windstorm. Over the past few years, these overlords were all extremely ferocious, with no one that dared offend them. Now such a person appeared. He instantly dealt a death blow to the 8 Stars School with his appearance, killing everyone present within their base. Have you heard of it? Someone wiped out the entire 8 Stars School's base. Such a miraculous feat. I have. One of my friends was coincidentally spectating the match. Upon seeing that scene, he was almost shocked to death. Yi Shiwen even killed such a horrifying person like the 8 Stars School's old sect master. In fact, Yi Shiwen had gained the upper hand since the start of the battle. Afterward, even the dozens of Transcendent Realm experts had perished by his hands. What a ruthless killer. In such a short amount of time, more than 30 Transcendent Realm experts had already perished by his hands. Who cares? As long as he doesn't kill us, it doesn't matter who he kills. That's right. According to the rumors, he doesn't kill others without reason. As long as we don't offend him, he wouldn't even bother touching us. I'm interested in the reaction of the 8 Stars School's experts that are currently venturing outside. I wonder how mad they would be. So what if they're mad? Currently, they only have more than 10 Transcendent Realm experts left. It might be too difficult for them to take Yi Shiwen down. That's true. Even an expert like the old sect master wasn't able to defeat Yi Shiwen. no one might be able to harm him at all. The entire ancient battlefield was in a state of surprise and panic. Those people who accepted the mission to assassinate Yi Shiwen felt fortunate, as they didn't have the chance to take action yet. Otherwise, them assaulting Yi Shiwen would result in their death. There was no exception to it. Even a force with the foundations as dense as the 8-star school was annihilated. They would merely be seeking death if they were to go up against Yi Shiwen. For a while, everyone became speechless. Even the experts from the Meteor sect and the Heavenly Martial sect became speechless. In the face of Yi Zaiwen's domineering ferocious might, they remained silent. They wouldn't be so ignorant to think that Yi Shiwen wouldn't dare to touch them at all. If this fanatic could even kill everyone within the 8-star school's base, what else does he not dare to do? Initially, they were brazenly underestimating Yi Shiwen. Now they didn't dare to do so any longer. After all, Yi Shiwen had killed everyone within an Overlord Forces base, with a Sect Master level expert included within. Even their current Sect Master couldn't do so, as they didn't possess such combat prowess. Yi Shiwen was just like a nuclear bomb. Wherever he passed by, destruction would occur. He had already become a deterrence in the eyes of others. If there weren't any need, no one would be willing to offend such a fanatic. They had already witnessed the outcome of provoking him through the 8-star sect. Solely because of Yi Shiwen, they had already lost more than 20 Transcendent Realm experts, which significantly damaged their foundations. No one was willing to end up in such a sorry state. Chapter 8:17. Eat another fist of mine. What does it mean to have a wicked reputation? This was it. After making a wicked reputation out of himself, no one dared to trouble him any further. After all, it was no different from seeking death. Everyone in the entire ancient battlefield became speechless for a while, as if they were still submerged in Yi Zaiwen's demeanor. They didn't dare to voice out anything and dare not even dare to hunt Yi Shiwen down. Suddenly, news was released from the deeper parts of the ancient battlefield. Through the venturing of numerous Transcendent Realm experts, they finally found something that deeply resembled the mythical world tree pathway deep in the ancient battlefield. All of a sudden, the entire ancient battlefield was in a ruckus. Many experts were reluctant to continue waiting outside, and instantly rushed into the ancient battlefield's deep parts, into the area filled with vast miasma. Suddenly, Yi Zaiwen's act of killing everyone within the 8-star school's base became insignificant. Only after a day had passed, no one was discussing it any further. Very quickly, Yi Shiwen had acquired the coordinates of the entrance to the true martial school pathway. Without any hesitation, he immediately rushed to the deep parts of the ancient battlefield. Above the miasma, Yi Zaiwen's figure was just like a stream of light, traversing through the miasma. The miasma's terrifying corrosiveness was constantly corroding his protective aura. Ancient Baron's continent, here I come. Brilliance was radiating within Yi Zaiwen's eyes. If he couldn't locate the spatial pathway that leads to the Ancient Baron's continent here, he would choose to go to the demon domain. His Star Beast avatar had already achieved the peak in cultivation, and could feel the existence of the barrier. It gave the feeling that he had reached the limits of the sky, and had no room for improvement any longer. In other words, he had no other way of continuing his breakthrough any longer. Beneath the starry skies, it would be pointless. As for his main body, he was already in the half-step transcendent initial realm peak. A little more, and he would be able to ascend to the half-step transcendent intermediate realm. However, this advancement was extremely hard for him. Not only was it already hard for his main form to break through, to begin with, but he had also even laid down some difficulties ahead of him, hindering his path. Yi Shiwen was ambitious. He had a huge ambition. He desired to possess the strength capable of rivaling a transcendent realm expert, when he's only in the half-step transcendent intermediate realm. If such an idea were released to the public, it would shock everyone. As a matter of fact, the disparity in strength between a half-step transcendent realm expert and a transcendent realm expert was huge. In the past, even when the Star Beast avatar was fighting against a transcendent realm expert, it didn't have any chances of refuting. After receiving a hit, it could only run for its life. If it weren't for the Tianyuan mirror, It wouldn't even be able to contend against a transcendent realm expert. Even if they were only half a step apart, the difference was indeed like the distance between heaven and earth itself. And yet, Yi Shiwen was now thinking of having the strength to rival a transcendent realm first-level peak, when he was only in the half-step transcendent realm. Only a lunatic would have such thoughts. However, Yi Zaiwen's thought process was different. This wasn't his first time doing so. He also knew that the difficulty he would face would be unprecedented. As such, he would require much more accumulation and stabilization in cultivation. At the very least, his main body had always been in close cultivation. No matter if it was in the ancient Barrens continent, or beneath the starry skies, it didn't hold any influence on him. Yi Shiwen had already made his decision to embark on the ancient Barrens continent. Of course, he would only leave after every single matter beneath the starry skies had been settled. The vast and continuous mountain range was enveloped in layers of dense miasma. In front of the mountain range, a large batch of experts had been waiting for a long time. Numerous experts were quietly waiting at this spot, which was the entrance of the spatial pathway connected to the ancient Barrens continent. From afar, Huang Wuji was leading a group of people from the true martial school here. Compared to these overlords, the true martial school was significantly weaker. As a result, they received the news much later, which was why they were only arriving here by now. So, this is where the antenna of the world tree from the myth, the legendary spatial pathway, is located at, said Huang Wuji as he narrowed his eyes. He then looked at the large batch of transcendent realm experts around him. This was the first time he had seen so many transcendent realm experts gathered in the same spot. No matter if it was the true martial school or the extraterrestrial overlords, the number of transcendent realm experts they had didn't imply the number of transcendent realm experts present beneath the starry skies. After all, there were far too many stray transcendent realm experts beneath the starry skies, belonging to no forces. That's right. There are so many transcendent realm experts present here. If it wasn't for the spatial pathway, more than half of the experts present might still be in close cultivation, said the chief of the 10,000 Fathoms Peak. Under such a situation where so many experts surveillance around, they couldn't act too domineering. The transcendent realm experts were still feeling fine. However, those great sages and half-step transcendent realm experts were suffering from it. Under those transcendent realm experts' sharp glances, they felt a stinging sensation and felt like numerous holes had appeared on their bodies. The overlords could dispatch some of their experts to build a base to accommodate the great sage and half-step transcendent realm experts. However, the true martial school didn't have the capabilities to do so, and could only bring all of them along. In fact, it was even safer this way. Those are the experts of the true martial school? True martial school? I've heard of it before. It's the sect where Yi Shiwen was from. I guess no one would expect such an exceptional prodigy like Yi Shiwen to originate from such a small sect, right? I agree. If I didn't hear about it from someone else, I wouldn't believe that someone could reach his level. Everyone was muttering upon the arrival of the true martial school, with most of them containing a gaze filled with curiosity, which sprouted from Yi Zaiwen's previously established reputation. The true martial school did not get angry upon hearing their discussions. On the contrary, they even felt proud. After all, Yi Shiwen originated from their true martial school. No matter what, he was still a disciple from the true martial school. True martial school. A loud shout resounded from a distance. Everyone's expression in the true martial school instantly changed upon seeing more than 30 transcendent realm experts surrounding them with an oppressive momentum. They were all experts from the 8 Stars School, the Heavenly Martial Sect, and the Meteor Sect. Those 3 sects had suffered dramatically from Yi Zaiwen's hands, which made them hold a deep grudge against Yi Shiwen. Since they couldn't locate Yi Shiwen, they wanted to vent out all their anger on the true martial school. "What do you think you're doing?" said Huang Wuji as he strode forward. As the schoolmaster, he would naturally have to stand up in such a situation. "What are we doing? I want to eradicate your true martial school." The 8 Stars Sect's school leader was a handsome middle-aged man. He stepped forward and said with a savage expression, "Blame Yi Shiwen for being in the true martial sect. Now, I shall also let him suffer from having his heart broken." Without a doubt, among the three overlords, the 8 Stars School hated Yi Shiwen to the core. Not only had numerous experts perished by the Yellow Springs, but Yi Shiwen had also killed everyone in their base. Not only did they lose dozens of Transcendent Realm experts, numerous half-step Transcendent Realm experts and Great Sage experts had also perished by Yi Ziwen's hands. So many bloods were spilled, and so many corpses were laying around the base. It caused them to suffer a significant loss. How could they not hate Yi Shiwen? Everyone from the true martial school's expression instantly changed, especially those that were still proud of Yi Shiwen. Currently, they couldn't help but smile bitterly. This Yi Shiwen is so proficient in causing us troubles. Ultimately, he even made us involved. That's right. It's a pity that he's not here. If he's here, we shall kill him as well, said the Heavenly Martial Sect Lord. He was a middle-aged man with a robust figure. Although the losses they suffered weren't as significant as the 8 Stars School, it was undoubtedly still a considerable loss. Such shamelessness. If it wasn't for your sect's experts being greedy, how would you suffer from such a huge loss? The disciples of the true martial sect were instantly enraged. As the news of the 3 overlords hunting Yi Shiwen down was released, the White Sun sect had also exposed the reason for their grudges and the losses experienced by the 3 overlord forces. Everyone was aware of their greed. If it weren't for them not leaving after seeing so many zombies around, they wouldn't suffer from such a significant loss. What a witty mouth. After killing all of you, I'll see how witty your mouths will be, said the Meteor Sect's sect lord as he smiled coldly. He was an old man with a youthful appearance, accompanied by a hair full of snow white. Everyone, prepare to fight to the death, Huang Wuji yelled. Seeing how the battle was pretty much unavoidable at this point, everyone in the true martial school had activated their martial arts and were prepared to brawl against these experts. Even if they died, they didn't want to live shamefully. Who dares to harm the people from my true martial sect? A clear voice resounded from afar. A stream of golden light traveled from afar and shot towards where everyone was, accompanied by an extremely horrifying aura. He instantly rushed towards the 3 overlords' forces that contain more than 30 Transcendent Realm experts. It's you again, little brat. The 8 Stars School leader was the first to react to the situation. Upon seeing Yi Shiwen, his eyes instantly became red, filled with killing intent. The old school leader that perished by Yi Ziwen's hands was his master. Among those that held a deep grudge against Yi Shiwen, the 8 Stars School's sect master was undoubtedly the one that hated him the most. Without any hesitation, the 8 Stars School's sect master immediately unleashed his fist towards Yi Shiwen. With the flux of the all-encompassing starlights, a surge of domineering fist might was instantly unleashed. He was someone with the combat prowess comparable to a sect master. His terrifying combat prowess was currently in full display. Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. He clenched his hand into a fist and instantly blasted a shattered star fist towards the 1,000 Star-Lord fist. Boundless overwhelming chi surged, and the two fiercely clashed against each other. Boom! A terrifying explosion resounded as the two powers clashed against each other. It destroyed the courtyard they were in, and a giant mushroom cloud rose, which formed a massive ray of light pillar. A silhouette fell out from the light pillar, with his posture in a slightly sorry state. It was the 8 Stars School's school leader. Chapter 8:18. Invisible Deterrence. Eat another fist of mine. A yell resounded from the light pillar. Another silhouette rushed out from within, and unleashed another exceptionally horrifying fist. Vast starlights were radiating from the fist, turning his entire fist into a massive star. It almost tore the entire sky apart. Boom. The 8 Stars School's school leader never expected Yi Ziwen's aura to recover so quickly. After the previous clash, when he was still recovering from the after effects of Yi Ziwen's fist, Yi Shiwen had already arrived in front of him. He quickly put up his defense. However, he didn't have enough time to be fully on guard and couldn't contend against Yi Shiwen at all. With another loud bang, his body flew outwards and crashed into the mountain range beside. The 8 Stars School's sect master's protective aura was dissipated by Yi Ziwen's punch, which resulted in him being exposed to the miasma. In almost an instant, his entire face was corroded beyond recognition. He immediately let out an anguished scream. The terrifyingness of the miasma was beyond everyone's imagination. Even with a transcendent realm physique, no one dared to expose their skin directly to these miasmas. It took him a long time to clad himself in his protective aura once more. However, his entire body was now corroded beyond recognition. No matter how exceptional the regeneration powers of a transcendent realm expert was, it would still be extremely difficult to heal such wounds and purge these miasma out of their body. He was currently absorbing more air than he could vent out. Through the previous battle, it almost made him lose his life. Currently, he could only stare at Yi Shiwen and dare not execute any other actions. Everyone started at Yi Shiwen, who was still in the air, dumbfoundedly. With that domineering brilliance surrounding him, he seemed like the reincarnation of an ancient overlord. Everyone only had one thought remaining. Yi Shiwen was much more horrifying than what the rumors suggested. In the past, when he first defeated a sect master-level expert, he barely managed to win. The second time he killed a sect master-level expert, he had traded hundreds of blows with the 8 Stars School's old school leader. In the end, the 8 Stars School's old school leader lost his vigor, which ultimately resulted in his defeat. Only a while had passed, and yet he seemed to have improved, becoming much more horrifying. With 2 punches, he had already profoundly wounded the 8 Stars School's school leader. The battle didn't seem like the battle between 2 people of the same realm. Instead, it seemed like one side was a transcendent realm expert, while the other was in the half-step transcendent realm. However, most people on the spot were transcendent realm experts. Although they had differences in terms of strength, none of them were weaklings. They could tell that Yi Shiwen wasn't strong enough to wound the 8 Stars School's sect master with 2 blows alone. Instead, he merely took advantage of the timing. He was more potent than the 8 Stars School's school leader, which implied a shorter recovery time. When the 8 Stars School's school leader was still recovering, Yi Shiwen took the opportunity to attack. The theory was elementary. However, none of them were able to imitate Yi Ziwen's actions. After all, his opponent was a sect master-level expert, which was already considered the strongest among the transcendent realm experts. How could their speed be slow? Of course, it was impossible. Then, only one explanation remained. Yi Ziwen's speed was merely too quick. His movement speed and recovery speed was top-notch. As a result, he was able to create such a shocking effect. Yi Shiwen was only able to do so because of the 2 lost techniques, the Phoenix Regeneration Technique and the Devil Wings. However, most people couldn't care less about it. They only felt that Yi Shiwen was too strong. Is this the rising of another horrifying expert? This was especially true to the people from the true martial school. They were all staring at Yi Shiwen in shock. Contrary to others, they were the ones that witnessed Yi Ziwen's progression. They witnessed him being a weakling, all the way to ascending the transcendent realm. However, no one expected Yi Shiwen to experience such a shocking growth spurt. He's truly getting more and more horrifying, and is becoming more and more of a monster, said Mu Xingjie bitterly. Initially, he still treated Yi Shiwen as his opponent. Now he had emptied his mind off such thoughts. While he might have a chance to catch up to Huang Wuji, he couldn't catch up to Yi Shiwen at all. However, after seeing Yi Ziwen's strength, it also allowed him to let go of the knot in his heart. Although he wasn't comparable to Yi Shiwen, he was still a prodigy. However, a prodigy was still a human. A human couldn't be compared to a monster at all. Mu Xiangjie's words gained the approval of various chief elders and the disciples of the true martial school. Other than a monster, there was no other term to describe Yi Shiwen anymore. Yi Shiwen had also gave Huang Wuji countless surprises. Huang Wuji never expected Yi Shiwen to be so outstanding. With such an expert presiding over the true martial school, he didn't have to worry about the true martial school's flourishment any longer. The entire area was quiet, and hundreds of transcendent realm experts remained silent. They merely looked at Yi Shiwen and dared not speak lest being killed on the spot. Who still dares to target our true martial school? Yi Shiwen stared at everyone present coldly. Then his gaze locked onto the 3 Overlord faction's experts. There were many people present that held malicious intentions towards the true martial school. However, the only ones that genuinely held a grudge against the true martial school were the three overlord forces. After all, strictly speaking, they were the ones that had suffered by the hands of Yi Shiwen. Previously, Yi Shiwen was still a little afraid. After all, no matter how strong he was, it's impossible for him to go against tens of transcendent realm experts together. However, the situation was now different. Now that his strength had experienced a breakthrough, he wasn't afraid of another besiege anymore. Besides, the Star Beast avatar itself wasn't afraid of fighting against a besiege, to begin with. Even the three overlord forces remained silent. Yi Zaiwen's domineering aura was just like a hand, grabbing their necks firmly. Even breathing became difficult for them. Their initial arrogance had also disappeared entirely in an instant. Now forget about finding troubles for Yi Shiwen. They would be glad if Yi Shiwen didn't make things hard for them. Many people were feeling despair. Despite being in the transcendent realm, the differences between them were far too significant. Most importantly, Yi Shiwen was merely a little over 100 years old. To the transcendent realm experts that had the lifespan of tens of thousands of years, he had barely lived through 1% of his lifespan. At the very least, Yi Shiwen could still dominate everyone beneath the starry skies for thousands of years. In other words, they might have to live under the shadow of this peerless expert for the next few thousands of years. Yi Shiwen had already planted an unparalleled impression deep in their hearts. As a result, a chain was binding their heart, causing them to have a weakness. Unless Yi Shiwen was killed, such a chain was impossible to be broken apart. Calm down, little brother Yi. The reason why we came here is for the pathway leading to the ancient Baron's continent. It would pose no benefits for everyone present if an internal battle were to happen. At this moment, a clear voice resounded, which broke through the awkward and quiet environment. A handsome middle-aged man flew over, looked at everyone present and smiled. For whatever reason, this middle-aged man's tone felt smart and refreshing. It was hard for someone to hate this voice at all. That's right. Having an internal fight right now would cause our strength to deteriorate. Let's just wait until we finish exploring the ancient battlefield. Settle your grudges after you go outside. Everyone quickly said. Even the various experts of the Meteor Sect, the Heavenly Martial Sect, and the 8 Stars School nodded. Going against Yi Shiwen now ensured their death. If this lunatic truly massacred everyone on the spot, they wouldn't even have a chance to complain about it. It wasn't impossible as well. Yi Zaiwen's previous act of killing everyone within the 8 Star School's base had already been spread to their ears. As such, they had to act extremely carefully. Currently, they held no advantage against Yi Shiwen. On the contrary, if they were in the outside world, they could dispatch a large batch of troops to crush the true martial school. Under such oppression, the strength of a transcendent realm expert wouldn't suffice in determining the outcome of the warfare. However, they could only think about it. Even if they dispatched many troops and annihilated the entire true martial school, it would be pointless if Yi Shiwen wasn't killed. With Yi Zaiwen's capabilities, he would continuously harass them. They wouldn't be able to withstand his harassment for long either, and would crumble. Through these matters, Yi Shiwen had become a core strength of deterrence. As long as he doesn't die, others would have to be wary of dealing with the true martial school. Unless the news of his death were confirmed, none of the overlord forces would dare to attack the true martial school. Of course, things would be different if someone was able to rival Yi Shiwen. Otherwise, they could only grit their teeth and accept the proposal unresignedly. Seeing the commotion caused by the crowd, Yi Shiwen could only go with the flow. It didn't matter either. After all, those 3 overlord forces would not dare to take action. The strength of a person might be nothing in the face of a considerable force. However, if one were strong enough, even the forces would have to be wary of him. Everyone, let's work together to blast this hole. According to the text, there should be a cave deep inside this hole. The pathway heading to the ancient Baron's continent would be at the deepest part of the cave, said an old transcendent realm expert. He had been living for a long time. Although he might not be the strongest, he was considered to be extremely knowledgeable. All right. That's right. With all of us working together, we would be able to blast this hole away. Let's do it together. Various experts yelled together. If hundreds of Transcendent Realm experts unleash their attacks at the same time outside of the ancient battlefield, the entire world would crumble. Only in the ancient battlefields, where even laws were twisted and shattered, would be able to contain such horrifying attacks. A shocking loud bang resounded. Terrifying energy waves seemed to have pierced through their souls, and the brilliant divine light shot to the sky, just like a volcano explosion. Boundless and endless spiritual energy started surging fanatically in an instant, and the gorgeous radiance expanded outwards like a tsunami, bringing along all the particles in its path. Chapter 8:19. The fierce battle within the cave. As these terrifying divine light expanded, even some Transcendent Realm experts were having difficulty withstanding its vibration. The half-step Transcendent Realm experts and the Great Sage experts of the true martial school felt an immense amount of pressure crushing them, as if the entire sky was going to crumble. When hundreds of Transcendent Realm experts unleashed their attacks together, it was sufficient to destroy the whole cosmos. Fortunately, just when they were almost unable to withstand it any further, a blood-colored barrier materialized in front of them and blocked the waves of energy ripples. Otherwise, they would have been deeply wounded, with some of them perishing. It was conceivable how terrifying this horrible impact was. Under such force, the hole became larger and larger. Without the mountain moving, a cave appeared from within, which excited everyone. It was precisely the same as how the text described it to be. In other words, it would be much easier to locate the mythical pathway. The instant the cave appeared, a wave of terrifying black miasma came surging out and rushed towards the sky. In almost an instant, black clouds were formed in the air, which covered the miasma that was initially there. Everyone's gaze turned serious. Only when the miasma was sealed for too many years would it form such a terrifying miasma. Everyone was quietly waiting, and no one rushed upwards. They would only enter after the miasma were all released. Yi Shiwen, be careful. We aren't aware of what kind of troubles lie ahead within this cave. You don't have to rush in as well. After all, with your strength, you'll have your place here. Yi Mo reminded. This cave is too weird. Yi Ziwen's expression was also twisted. Upon hearing Yi Mo's words, he affirmed his feelings. Little brother Yi, who knew that we would meet each other again. After delivering a voice transmission to the true martial school's disciples, reminding them to be careful and not act rashly, a clear laughing voice resounded near him. Upon looking towards the voice source, the person he saw was no other than the man he had previously met by the tea shop, Li Feng. Senior Li, said Yi Shiwen as he cupped his hands, being courteous. Even until now, Yi Shiwen was still unable to see through Li Feng's cultivation. Li Feng's cultivation was still far higher than Yi Shiwen, or he had some martial arts, which helped to conceal his cultivation, just like Yi Ziwen's aura convergence martial art. How long has it been? Your speed of progression is truly shocking, said Li Feng with a hint of surprise. And yet am still inferior to you, said Yi Shiwen as he smiled bitterly. While he might be considered a top-notch expert beneath the starry skies, he still couldn't see through Li Feng. Haha, this is nothing. You'll surely reach my stage one day, said Li Feng indifferently. In other words, he was admitting that he was stronger than Yi Shiwen. Later, 10 token plates will appear from within. If you want to leave here, you must acquire one of them. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen received Li Feng's voice transmission. Yi Shiwen was startled. He didn't know why Li Feng would tell him such important news. He didn't doubt Li Feng either. After all, Li Feng had no reason to lie to him. All right. I shall take my leave first, said Li Feng. After staring intently at Xiaoya, he turned around, turned into a stream of light, and rushed within the cave. Seeing that someone had made a move, the various experts around finally couldn't hold it in any longer. They were afraid of being slower than others, and thus being unable to reap the benefits within. Hundreds of experts rushed within the cave in an instant. Then, Yi Shiwen finally led the true martial school group within the cave. Everyone was advancing quickly. After a short while, they had already reached the deep parts of the cave. While the cave didn't seem big from the outside, the inside was truly spacious. Roar! When Yi Shiwen and his group entered, the crowd had already ventured far deeper. They could only hear the roars of beasts resounding from within, followed by the yells of the Transcendent Realm experts, and the explosive sounds of combat. Everyone dared not delay any further and instantly rushed forward, only to be greeted by a shocking scene. More than 10 zombies clad in a fur coat were blocking in front of them, and were fighting against hundreds of Transcendent Realm experts. If it weren't for their dense death chi, Yi Shiwen wouldn't have been able to identify these furry beasts as zombies. A furry zombie rushed into the 8 Stars School's crowd and grabbed towards the 8 Stars School's sect leader, which was being protected in the center. The smell of blood reeked from his wound, which Yi Shiwen had inflicted, making the furry zombie attracted to him. Everyone in the 8 Stars School displayed a formation, and wanted to fend this furry zombie off. The furry zombie didn't know what kind of expert was in front of it. Instead, it unleashed its vast ghost claw and scratched towards the 8 Stars School's school leader. Various elders from the 8 Stars School unleashed their horrifying saber lights, and stood in front of the ghost's claw. Clang! When their long saber clashed against the huge furry hand, the sound of metal clashing resounded. However, the claw wasn't hurt at all. Its hand continued its advancement towards the 8 Stars School's school leader. The 8 Stars School's school leader was instantly enraged. Previously, he had already been shamed by Yi Shiwen outside. Now even this beast was treating him like a weakling. He immediately unleashed a terrifying saberlight, and stood atop the vast ghost claw. Plish! The saberlight could only leave a scratch on that all-encompassing ghost claw. The saberlight wasn't able to stop its advancement. The 8 Stars School's school leader was shocked. He never expected his full-force attack to be powerless in stopping the ghost claw's advancement. It instantly enraged him further. However, the ghost claw's direction of advancement had been altered. It clawed towards a Transcendent Realm elder beside him. Ah! The elder let out a tragic scream. The colossal hand pierced through his chest, and his heart was crushed. Blood was gushing out from his body, along with his organs that were crushed into bits. Everything was so eerie and gory. In only an instant, a terrifying Transcendent Realm expert was killed. The true martial school's martial warriors broke out in cold sweat upon witnessing it. If it wasn't for Yi Shiwen, it might have happened to them, which will result in all of them being massacred. They never expected such a terrifying zombie to still exist. Each of them had the combat prowess of a sect master level expert, and their physiques were impregnable. Other than being a little slow, they didn't seem to have any form of weakness. However, when they were merely guarding this location, their weakness didn't seem like a weakness anymore. Kill them. Only by killing them will we locate the passage. Someone shouted, which strongly motivated the martial warriors' will to fight. Various experts unleashed their attacks at the same time, which was a terrifying sight to behold. When different kinds of lost martial arts were unleashed together, it was sufficient to cause the world to collapse. At this moment, the ancient cave was resounding with the roars of the furry zombies and the experts' yells within. Boom! 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 Terrifying explosions sounds resounded everywhere. These monsters' bodies were like metal and weren't afraid of any attacks. They rushed straight into the experts' formations. Under the continuous attack of tens of those monsters, the martial warriors' factions were continually retreating. Although their fighting spirit had been kindled, they were still fearful of the stagnant situation they couldn't overcome. Humph! A cold snort resounded from the middle-aged man who mediated the situation earlier. Only by now did Yi Shiwen know that he was the sect master of the Burning Heavens sect, one of the extraterrestrial overlord factions. He flew upwards and materialized a massive blazing door. He then used the door to oppress the furry zombie. This was the Burning Heavens sect's garrison martial instrument, the Burning Heavens door. According to the rumors, the Burning Heavens sect's ancestors acquired this martial instrument by luck, along with various martial arts and lost techniques beside it. He used these resources to establish the Burning Heavens sect and ultimately reigned a domain. The martial arts and the Burning Heavens door that he had acquired were all powerful. The furry zombie let out an enraged roar and unleashed a supreme fist art. A surge of terrifying fist intent was being launched towards the massive door. Boom! The fist intent was nothing in the face of the blazing Burning Heavens door. In almost an instant, the fist intent was burned to crisps. The burning heavens door's momentum was unabated, and it continued rushing towards that furry zombie. Bang! The furry zombie let out a tragic scream as it watched its body being burned by the snow-white flames. The flame was so hot, it turned the furry zombie into ashes. The Burning Heavens sect master's face was a little pale. When activating the Burning Heavens door, even if he didn't utilize it to the maximum, it was still too exhausting to do so. He couldn't just keep operating the Burning Heavens door like that. The battle here was considered insignificant. After all, the Burning Heavens sect wasn't the only one that brought their garrison martial instruments. Some other forces had brought it as well, and were now forced to use it. All of a sudden, the battle between them and the zombies entered a stagnant state. Everyone in the true martial school let out a sigh of relief. These zombies were powerful and possessed the combat prowess of a sect master. In fact, they were much stronger than the sect master level experts within the hundreds of Transcendent Realm experts. Fortunately, the Transcendent Realm experts had brought along their garrison martial instruments, which managed to hold the zombies back. If they continued their massacre in this manner, the zombies would ultimately be eradicated. However, Yishuan finally couldn't hold it in anymore. He rushed forward and fought against a furry zombie. Behind him, the true martial school could only work together to hold back a furry zombie. They didn't dare to do things rashly. After all, they didn't have a sect master level expert among them, and Huang Wuji was still far from reaching it. Chapter 820. Acquiring the token plate among the group of Transcendent Realm experts. Only the sect master level experts possessed deterrence, just like the true martial school's former schoolmaster and the old city lord. Upon locating a furry zombie, Yishuan started fighting against it. The furry zombie's flesh was genuinely impregnable. What's more, there was even poison coated around its body. When tainted by it, one might even transform into a zombie. This was indeed a terrifying poison. Other than their body being stiff and their speed being a little slow, they didn't possess any weakness. For Yishuan, they were like some rare punching bags. Indeed, while others thought of these furry zombies as extremely dangerous entities, they were not more than punching bags in the eyes of Yishuan. Boom, boom, boom. Yishuan could utilize his full strength without any worries and didn't hold back at all. Only these zombies would be able to withstand his horrifying attacks. The two sides returned to the most primitive brawl. There weren't any kinds of fancy martial arts or techniques anymore. There was only the brawl using pure strength and physique. A punch. Another punch. Yet another punch. After 100 punches, the furry zombie was finally unable to withstand Yi Zaiwen's attack anymore. With a tragic scream, its entire body exploded, with its poisonous blood flying around. "Haha, this is fun," said Yishuan as he laughed loudly. Currently, there were very few people who could go up against his physical body head-to-head. As a result, he didn't have many chances to utilize his full strength in his attacks. Yishuan defeated even an expert like the 8 Stars school leader with 2 punches alone. On the other side of the battlefield, the defeat of the furry zombies had become inevitable. Among those Transcendent Realm experts, 2 people among them possessed truly horrifying strength. One of them was a white-haired old man with a youthful appearance. He was wearing a lunar white long robe and seemed a little familiar. The other person was Li Feng. These 2 people had already killed more than 20 furry zombies in only a short amount of time. With the assistance of the other overlord forces, the wave of zombies was finally suppressed. Yishuan went back to kill the zombie that the true martial school was going against. To him, these furry zombies didn't pose much of a threat now. Just as everyone worked together to kill the last furry zombie, the entire cave started rumbling. The entire floor surface was vibrating fanatically. From afar, everyone could see a transportation platform slowly rising deep within the cave. Upon the bright platform, 10 token plates were materialized in front of everyone's eyes. In an instant, everyone's gaze shifted towards those token plates. Those token plates are used to enter the ancient Baron's continent. Only with these token plates would one be able to access that continent. Only 10 token plates would materialize every 100 years. Someone among the martial warriors yelled. which caused everyone's gaze to be locked onto those token plates. They never expected such limitations to exist. This was truly beyond their expectations. That's right, said an old martial warrior, affirming this theory. In the ancient times, the ancient Baron's continent is the highest plane of existence. Every 100 years, only 10 outstanding people would have the chance to acquire the token plate and head to the ancient Baron's continent. However, one can bring 10 people along with one token plate. Everyone's heart sank. They never expected that only 10 people would have the chance to head to the ancient Baron's continent every 100 years. Some people might not even be able to access it before dying. Not everyone could stand on this transportation platform. However, the temptation of breaking through the upper limits of their cultivation made them desire the token plates greatly. Who cares about those overlord forces? If it makes me stronger, I can even sever all ties with others. Who cares about their threats? This one is mine. At this instant, the Burning Heavens sect leader took action. He instantly presented his Burning Heavens door and unleashed a fire pillar. The fire pillar enveloped the token plate and entered his hands. Immediately after, the other overlord forces that brought their garrison martial instruments along did the same. Everyone could only watch the overlord forces do so. After all, the garrison martial instruments were too mighty. Even if the preparations weren't complete, and the garrisoned martial instruments weren't in their full might, their might far surpasses a transcendent tool. What's more, most people here didn't possess a transcendent tool. Everyone could only watch 6 token plates being taken away in an instant. Fortunately, everyone was afraid of enraging the mass. As such, each faction only took 1 token plate. They didn't take all the token plates present. The 4 remaining token plates suddenly became incredibly alluring in everyone's eyes. Even Yi Shiwen was prepared to take action. Now he finally understood why Li Feng said he must acquire a token plate. Li Feng had already known about it beforehand. What identity does Li Feng have? How does he know so much? However, the doubts in his heart merely appeared for a while. He decided not to venture further into it. Now there wasn't any time for him to contemplate it any longer. He didn't touch the first 6 token plates because of those garrison martial instruments. There was already a garrison martial instrument within his Tianyuan mirror. As such, he was aware of how mighty a garrison martial instrument was. There was no need for him to ask for more trouble. As such, he could only take 1 from the remaining 4 token plates. Without waiting for anyone to react, the white-haired old man with a youthful appearance and Li Feng both took action. They effortlessly snatched the remaining 2 token plates, and no one dared to refute them. After all, they were too strong. Their previous demeanor, when killing 10 zombies continuously, had shocked the crowd. Their efficiency in killing the zombies was far better than the overlord factions that brought a garrison martial instrument along. At this moment, Yi Shiwen took action as well. He didn't want to wait for the last token plate. When that time comes, the competition for the token plates would become too intense. With a swipe, a token plate landed in Yi Ziwen's hand. The texture of the token plate felt gentle, as it wasn't a physical object. It was materialized through some form of energy. The energy was extremely scarce, as only 10 token plates would be materialized every 100 years. Stop. Put the token plate down. Otherwise, it'll kill you. A sect master level stray transcendent realm expert rushed ahead, with his eyes filled with red. Under the influence of the token plate, he had already gone a little crazy. He couldn't care less about the repercussions any longer. For people that had achieved the strength of a sect master level, they had already reached the limits of their cultivation path. If nothing unexpected happens, they could only slowly await death, just like their preceding ancestors. However, now that the chance to ascend to the ancient Baron's continent was right in front of him, he would never let it go. For this opportunity, he had already descended into a mild madness. Compared to other people, Yi Shiwen seemed easier to deal with. Yi Shiwen sneered and glanced around his surroundings. All he saw were gazes filled with greed, staring on the token plate in his hand. Among the 9 people that had acquired the token plate, Yi Shiwen was the weakest. If they wanted to snatch a token plate away, Yi Shiwen would be the best target. You're seeking death. How dare you think of taking my stuff? Before the Transcendent Realm expert could release any other words of threats, Yi Shiwen had already lunged himself toward said expert. He clenched his fingers into a fist, and his aura was raised to the maximum. Golden divinites were instantly clad throughout his body. He was even mightier than when he was previously fighting against the 8-star school leader. His fist intent radiated a fist brilliance and came crashing down like a light pillar. That stray Transcendent Realm cultivator immediately erected all his defense. The instant Yi Shiwen started his attack, the stray cultivator finally came back to his senses. Indeed, while he was the weakest among 9 of them, they were all peerlessly ruthless individuals. Previously, when the 8-star school leader was fighting against him, the school leader almost had no chance of retaliating and was virtually crippled. However, it was too late for him to make any appropriate reactions. Yi Ziwen's fist was like a mountain, which crushed through all his defenses, reaching his body. Bang! He was immediately blown away by that punch. All his armor and defensive martial instruments were all shattered in an instant. He was secretly amazed by how strong Yi Ziwen's physical body was. Before his emotions of amazement faded, Yi Ziwen's next fist had already arrived. Boom! It was another punch that weighed as much as a mountain. He finally couldn't hold it in any longer, and blood was spewed out from his mouth. His body flew away once more. However, Yi Shiwen didn't let him go just like that. His shattering star fist came landing upon the stray cultivator continuously. Boom, boom, boom. The stray cultivator was beaten to death by Yi Shiwen, and the Tianyuan mirror extracted his blood essence. Anyone else against me? Yi Shiwen stared at the crowd with an ice-cold gaze. Everyone was frightened, and dare not plot for Yi Ziwen's token plate any longer. They also felt pity for the sect leader-level stray cultivator, as he was acting a little too rashly. Although there were only 10 token plates now, 10 were produced every 100 years. Even if he lost the chance this time, he might acquire it next time. After all, the lifespan of a Transcendent Realm expert was too long. At the very least, he would have tens of chances. Even the Overlord factions dare not occupy all of the token plates. Otherwise, it would incite the rage of the public. Besides, 1 token allows 10 people to advance to the ancient Baron's continent. Even for an Overlord force, they might need a few tokens within the span of 1,000 years. After all, they didn't dare to bring all their Transcendent Realm experts to the ancient Baron's continent, unless they wanted to leave their foundations alone. As such, these stray cultivators had their chances as well. Seeing no one's objection, Yi Shiwen finally returned to the True Martial Schools group. Everyone in the school felt excited upon seeing Yi Shiwen acquiring a token plate. Chapter 821. Parting. Just like what Yi Shiwen had expected, almost everyone placed their life on the line when fighting for the last token plate. Other than Yi Shiwen acquiring a token plate, no one else held any objections against the other 8 people taking it. However, other than those people, no one else had such a strong deterrence. The fight for the last token was too hectic. Every Overlord forces, true martial domain forces, various stray cultivators, and experts were all massacring each other solely for the last token plate. Yi Shiwen was merely spectating aside. No matter how intense the battle was, he didn't care about it at all. In truth, those people that had acquired the token plate had backed out from the commotion. If they were to join in, the public's rage would be incited. "Junior brother, let's leave," suggested Huang Wuji. Since the token plate had been acquired, their goal here had already been achieved. All right, Yi Shiwen nodded. The people that were currently staying behind were all aiming for the last token plate. Besides, he didn't have the plans of going to the ancient Baron's continent right now. If all the remaining problems weren't settled ultimately, he wouldn't be able to depart safely. The True Martial School still had too many enemies within the True Martial domain. Currently, almost every member of the Yi family had already joined the True Martial School. If the True Martial School's problems weren't settled with, he wouldn't be able to leave. The departure of the True Martial School's crowd did not attract much attention. With Yi Shiwen presiding over the True Martial School, no one dared to snatch their token plate anymore. Everyone's attention were attracted to the last token plate. Upon leaving the cave, as they wanted to return to the true martial school, a voice resounded from afar. All of you from the true martial school, please stay behind. Everyone turned their heads and saw Li Feng calling to them. After a short while, Li Feng had already reached their side. What other advice does Senior Li have? Asked Yi Shiwen as he stepped forward and cupped his hands. Li Feng merely smiled. None, am leaving for the ancient barrens soon. Only, am worried about leaving my daughter here alone, which is why I'm planning to bring her along with me. Your daughter? Everyone's eyes widened. They could tell how powerful Li Feng was, and were all clueless about who his daughter was. Everyone's expression went blank. My child, wake up now. Li Feng waved his hand, and a divine light surged out, instilling itself within Xiaoya's body. What did you do to her? The fair maiden Peak's chief frowned and yelled at Li Feng. Although Li Feng was extremely strong, Xiaoya was still her closed-door disciple, which she viewed as her successor. How could she tolerate someone hurting her? Yi Ziwen's gaze turned sharp as well. In a cold tone he said, Senior Li, please explain clearly what have you done? Xiaoya weighed a lot in his heart. Although they had been separated for a few years, the bond between them hadn't changed. Li Feng didn't react to the true martial school's rage. Instead, he merely smiled and was even enlightened. Before the situation advanced any further, a clear voice came out of Xiaoya's voice. Daddy! Xiaoya rushed into Li Feng's embrace and cried softly. I thought that I wouldn't be able to see you anymore. Everyone in the true martial school were shocked. Are they father and daughter? Xiaoya had never mentioned her father at all. Yi Shiwen had known of Xiaoya the earliest, ever since she was still a child. And yet, she had never mentioned her father before. Besides, if she had a father, why would she be wandering around the secret territory? Seeing how everyone was still in disbelief, Li Feng couldn't help but explain. Xiaoya is my daughter. Only, her memories were sealed by me in the past, and she didn't know about my existence. Everyone came to a revelation. It was no wonder why Xiaoya had never mentioned her father before. However, they got even more curious. For what reason did Li Feng seal his daughter's memories? Seeing how Li Feng and Xiaoya had no intention of explaining, everyone felt it inappropriate to ask, as it was their family's internal matter. Originally, I didn't want Xiaoya to start cultivating so early. And yet, my plan was destroyed by you, brat. Li Feng looked at Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen smiled bitterly. In the end, it still became his problem. It was no wonder why Xiaoya had no cultivation when they first met. Despite her having an outstanding foundation and aptitude, Yi Shiwen could only smile bitterly, while the fair maiden Peak's chief was lost in words. She had spent so much effort raising Liya, intending to make Liya her successor. And yet, Liya's father wanted to bring her to the ancient barrens. The fair maiden Peak's chief's plan on making her a successor had been destroyed. However, she couldn't say anything now. After all, compared to her, Liya's father, Li Feng was much stronger. At the very least, she couldn't see through Li Feng's cultivation. Besides, they were going to the ancient barrens, which was better for Liya's development than the true martial domain. Forget it. This is your fate. Li Feng let out a sigh and cupped his hands. Xiaoya had given many troubles to all of you when she was together with your true martial school. I thank all of you for that. Xiaoya's head came out from Li Feng's embrace. She looked at Yi Shiwen and the fair maiden Peak's chief with reluctance. Big brother Yi master. Although her memories were awakened, the two of them had engraved an unerasable mark in her life. Follow your father. Who knows, I might go to the ancient barrens as well, said the fair maiden Peak's chief. She was currently still in her youthful years. If she didn't go to the ancient barrens, it might become the regret of her life. When that time comes, we might be able to meet each other once more. Hearing what her master said, Xiaoya felt a little reassured. She looked at Yi Shiwen once more and said, Big brother Yi, how about we leave together? It's fine. I still have matters I'd like to settle before going to the ancient barrens, which I don't know how long it would take. Just leave first. After this, if fate allows it, we would meet each other once more. Yi Shiwen shook his head. He knew how much safer it would be to go to the ancient barons together with Li Feng. However, a martial warrior's path was destined to be lonely. If he required others' protection, it served no purpose for him to go to the ancient barons' continent. Upon hearing Yi Ziwen's words, Xiaoya couldn't hold in her tears anymore. Her glittering tears continuously flowed from her eyes and fell to the ground. All right, silly girl. You'll meet him again in the future. This kid isn't an unambitious person. In the future, find him after hearing about his name. Li Feng had no choice but to comfort her. His daughter was the only worry of his heart, and the only thing he cared about. Southern Dipper, are you giving up on all your foundations here and going to the ancient barons? An old and cold voice resounded from afar. It was the lunar white-colored old man clad in a long robe. Currently, he was treading by stepping on lights. What about it, Big Dipper? Do you want to fight against me here? Li Feng snorted and strode forward. He hid Xiaoya behind him in a secretive manner. Do you think I'm afraid of you? I just never expected such a great hero like you to give up on your foundations and transcend to the ancient barons' continent, said the old man, Big Dipper, in a plain manner. He then glanced at Xiaoya, who was hidden behind Li Feng. Foundations? What foundations? Haha, I was just too short-sighted last time. In the end, this kid's vision is much broader than mine. Li Feng turned to look at Yi Shiwen. The establishments that I had established for half of my life amounted to nothing in the end. Everything is fate. Since fate forbids me to do so, I shall not go against it. Yi Shiwen was confused. What does it have to do with me? If you're willing to let go of all your establishment and dissolve the Southern Dipper, I won't hold you accountable for what you did in the past, said the old man Big Dipper. Even if your plans succeeded, it's impossible for the native clan to revive. They had already perished since long ago. Even with all your remaining descendants of the native clan, it's impossible to revive the native clan. Everyone in the true martial school was shocked, as they had acquired shocking information that might shock even the entire world. Native clan, remaining descendants. Li Feng was of the native clan. In other words, Xiaoya might be from the native clan as well. Everyone couldn't believe it, as they couldn't tell previously. As for the fair Maiden Peak's chief, she didn't think much about it. No matter which race Xiaoya was still her disciple. That was all there was to it. Only Yi Shiwen didn't mind it at all. No matter what, Xiaoya's position within his heart wouldn't change. He only came to a revelation. All the previous unexplainable matters now had a suitable explanation, including the reason for Xiaoya's slow growth rate. After so many years, she matured only a little. There was her absurd talent as well. She could be of the native clan, although it wasn't clear which native clan she was from. Everything was now explainable. Haha, this kid's right. There aren't any distinctions between justice and evil. It's merely two races fighting for space of survival. After seeing through it, everything became negligible now, said Li Feng. I have already dispersed the Southern Dipper. I'll also bring the remaining native clan members to the ancient barons' continent. There's no need for you to worry about it. That's great, said the old man Big Dipper. However, I want the token plate in your possession. After all, one token plate doesn't suffice in bringing away all the native clan members, said Li Feng. All right, no problem. The old man Big Dipper's response was very straightforward, without any hints of delay. Big Dipper. Southern Dipper. Yi Shiwen suddenly remembered the two huge groups beneath the starry skies. Even he was a member of the Big Dipper. If that's the case, the two people in front of me are the Big Dipper Constellation Emperor and the Southern Dipper Constellation Emperor. Seeing Yi Ziwen's stunned look, the old man Big Dipper finally said, Do you understand now? You still think he's a good person? Chapter 822. Before parting with each other, Yi Shiwen certainly didn't regard Li Feng as a good person. However, when he realized that Li Feng was the Southern Dipper's head, Southern Dipper Constellation Emperor, he was still extremely baffled. He already felt numb about that old man being the Big Dipper Constellation Emperor. Although he had joined the Big Dipper, he wasn't concerned about their actions. After all, the Big Dipper's control over their members was lax. Other than branding the Southern Dipper as their mortal enemies, there weren't any other rules. Originally, I planned to nurture you as the next in line Big Dipper Constellation Emperor. I never expected you to be going to the ancient barons. Sigh, what a pity, said the Big Dipper Constellation Emperor as he let out a sigh. Thank you for taking care of me all this while, said Yi Shiwen as he cupped his hands. Although he didn't have many ties with the Big Dipper, joining the Big Dipper and becoming the Constellation Lord already implied that he was being cared for. It's nothing. You're able to reach your current state because of your efforts, said the Big Dipper Constellation Emperor as he let out a sigh. Enough, old man. Stop blabbering. Give me the token plate, said Li Feng with an annoyed expression. It's been thousands of years and you're still acting like this. The Big Dipper Constellation Emperor shook his head and let out a laugh. After being opponents for so many years, they truly understood each other well. He waved his hand, and the token plate fell into Li Feng's hands. After confirming that the token plate was real, Li Feng said, "Then let us meet again in the future." "Big brother Yi, you must come to find me," said Xiaoya all of a sudden. "I will. If fate allows it, we will meet each other again." Yi Shiwen smiled and nodded. He was feeling a sense of reluctance as well. However, after thinking about how they would meet each other in the ancient barons, he suddenly felt better. As soon as Yi Shiwen finished speaking, Li Feng had already transformed into a stream of light, disappearing in the skies together with Xiaoya. "Since he's left, I won't be remaining here any longer," said the Big Dipper Constellation Emperor. "Senior, do you want to ascend to the ancient barons together with me?" asked Yi Shiwen. Since one token allowed 10 people to come along, Yi Shiwen had sufficient slots for the Big Dipper to go along. "No need, I'm already old. I want to remain in my hometown, and have no intentions of going anywhere else," said the Big Dipper Constellation Emperor as he let out a sigh. Compared to Li Feng, he wasn't as ambitious. He had never thought of displaying his might in the ancient barons' continent. "Then this junior has a request." Yi Shiwen cupped his hands and bowed to him. "Speak." The Big Dipper Constellation Emperor's eyes narrowed with his smile. If it were any other person, he would have left long ago. As a Big Dipper Constellation Emperor, he didn't even put the sect leaders of the Overlord factions in high regard. After all, he wasn't someone that would casually grant one's request. However, Yi Shiwen was different. He viewed Yi Shiwen in high regard. Besides, Yi Shiwen was their Big Dipper Star Lord. Naturally, Yi Ziwen's identity and strength were different. "Please take care of the true martial school if you find it convenient," said Yi Shiwen. No matter what, the true martial school was the biggest source of his worries. However, if the Big Dipper Constellation Emperor could take care of the true martial school, many burdens of his would be lifted. Hearing how Yi Shiwen was still worrying about them even until now, everyone in the true martial school felt a warmth in their hearts. Ultimately, Yi Shiwen was still from their true martial school. "Haha, you're using me as a bodyguard? That's fine. Since I have nothing to do, I'll take care of whatever I'm capable of taking care of," said the Big Dipper Constellation Emperor. Without his mortal enemy, the Southern Dipper, causing a ruckus, he suddenly had nothing to do anymore. "Thank you, Senior." Yi Shiwen and the people from the true martial school bowed and thanked the Big Dipper. The Big Dipper Constellation Emperor did not remain for any further and left the area. As for the true martial school's members, they returned to the true martial school. Shortly after returning to the true martial school, the entire true martial domain had gone crazy, as the myths regarding the ancient barons' continent were true. Despite there being only 10 token plates every 100 years, every token plate allows 10 people's ascension. In other words, 100 people would have the chance to reach the ancient barons every 100 years. Such information caused everyone to be attracted to it. In truth, the number of transcendent realm experts beneath the starry skies only amounted to more than 1,000, including those that were in seclusion and were slumbering. Even if all of them were to come out, it would merely require 10 batches of token plates, which would only amount to 1,000 years. They had already waited for countless years. 1,000 years was nothing at all. They had lots of chances. As soon as such information was spread around, an uproar occurred. Very quickly, the news of the last token plate finally had its owner. It fell into the hands of an old stray cultivator in the Transcendent Realm first-level peak. However, after acquiring the last token plate, he had disappeared very quickly. Everyone else knew the reason, as well. After all, he wasn't as strong as the others that held the token plates. Besides, even Yi Shiwen had the true martial school to back him. As a stray cultivator, he had no one to back him up, which prevented him from appearing. After all, many Overlord-level forces didn't obtain a token plate. As such, the stray cultivator had to go into hiding. 10 years passed in an instant. Other than Yi Shiwen, all other owners of the token plates had already passed through the teleportation platform, heading to the ancient Baron's continent. All the Overlord forces' interest in the true martial domain decreased significantly. Since they were aware that the pathway would be opened every 100 years, they wouldn't have any chances during the next few decades. The extraterrestrial overlords started retracting from the true martial domain. After 100 years passed, they could head to Daokong Mountain. They didn't have to dispatch large batches of experts to invade the true martial domain anymore. After all, with so many experts outside, their sect would face unprecedented danger. It was considered nothing when everyone invaded the true martial domain. However, now that the Overlord forces started retreating, everyone started panicking. All of them started returning to their sect one after another. It was where their foundations lied after all. No one held the strength sufficient of governing over two worlds. As the last extraterrestrial overlord retreated from the true martial domain, before the various forces from the true martial domain could cheer, the true martial school made a new move. They dispatched a large number of troops. The southern wilderness fire cloud cave was thoroughly annihilated within a month. Equipped with the true martial stone sword, Yi Shiwen alone had killed 13 Transcendent Realm experts, and even killed the Fire Cloud Cave's cave lord. The Fire Cloud Cave that had been dominating the southern wilderness for years had been destroyed. As for the remaining disciples that surrendered, they were all accepted as the disciples of the Fire Cloud Hall, commanded by the 2 remaining Transcendent Realm experts of the Fire Cloud Cave. With their victorious might, the other forces of the southern wilderness like the 100 Barbarians Cave surrendered. After dealing with the southern wilderness, the true martial domain's troops started attacking the 5 regions and 4 wilderness experts. Equipped with the true martial stone sword, Yi Shiwen was just like an unparalleled killer. No one could fight against him in the true martial domain. After another 30 years, every part of the true martial domain was slowly calming down, and the true martial school became the ruler of the true martial domain. Along with all the Transcendent Realm experts that surrendered, the true martial school now had more than 70 Transcendent Realm experts. Although not all of them were loyal to the true martial school, it was still a good start. As long as the true martial school maintains its current strength, no one would think of leaving the true martial school. Following the growth of the next generation, the true martial school would become stronger. Besides, they had an unparalleled killer like Yi Shiwen around, who was undefeatable beneath the starry skies. No one would dare to have such thoughts. The true martial school's reputation was renowned throughout the world, as they become an overlord force beneath the starry skies. Also, the true martial school's foundations accumulated through all the past years had finally come into use. Based on strength alone, they weren't inferior compared to the overlord forces any longer. As for Yi Shiwen, he had become a legend throughout the true martial school. In the true martial school, there was a mountain with the name Yi Peak. Inside, every member of the Yi family was living there. 20 years ago, Yi Shiwen had brought his family over from the Yuan sect. Because of Yi Shiwen, the Yi family became a legendary family of the true martial school, and they flourished more and more. In Yi Ziwen's opinion, his family would be safer in the true martial school. Besides, their future potential for development would also be much more enormous. With all the foundations and wealth that he left behind, the Yi family would undoubtedly grow to become one of the true martial school's huge families. With this, he would be able to leave safely. Now that the true martial school had become an overlord force, unless they encountered someone like the Star Beast Avatar, the possibility of them declining would be minimal. Above a tall tree within a forest in the Yi Peak, a teenager clad in a long green robe was lying by a tree branch. The wind around him blew softly, glowing his hair intertwined with the color of black and white. It was Yi Shiwen. During the past decades of war, he participated in them when equipped with the true martial stone sword. His strength was already strong, to begin with. Along with the true martial stone sword, he was naturally invincible and won every single battle. However, the true martial stone sword was indeed a demonic sword. During the past few decades, it consumed more than 3,000 years of his lifespan. It was no wonder why the Supreme School leader quickly secluded himself after using it once. After continuously using it, his youth vigor had long gone, turning into an elderly instead. Naturally, the consumption of his vital energy and blood would be much more significant. He didn't mind losing 3,000 years of lifespan. After all, the Star Beast Avatar's lifespan was already incredibly long, to begin with. Even without those 3,000 years, it wouldn't affect it at all. The main problem was the consumption of his vital energy and blood. After he had just finished fighting the war, he looked like an old man that was at death's door. It almost scared his parents to death. Luckily, with his conditioning through all the true martial school medicines used to replenish vital energy and blood, he finally recovered slowly. Half of his hair being white was the aftermath of such an incident. Chapter 823. Stunning prodigies of every domains. This was also due to how much more vigorous the Star Beast Avatar's vital energy and blood were than a regular expert. If it were any other ordinary person, the past few decades of warfare would consume their vital energy dry, resulting in death. During the past 30 years, Yi Shiwen had slowly taken care of the matters he intended to take care of. 10 years ago, the wolf cub had successfully ascended the Transcendent Realm. When it ascended the Transcendent Realm, people from the Thousand Demon Beasts Island came and brought it away. According to them, the wolf cub would go to the ancient Baron's continent through the Thousand Demon Beasts Island. After more than 100 years of conditioning, the Thousand Demon Beasts Island had recovered a fair amount of their strength and weren't willing to remain beneath the starry skies any longer. Yi Shiwen didn't mind it. After all, as long as he reached the ancient Baron's continent, they would eventually meet each other once more. Above the Yi Peak, lights shone everywhere. The moonlight shone through the tree leaves, being separated into numerous rays of light. They shone on Yi Ziwen's body, reflecting a silver shade on his white hair. "It's time to leave," said Yi Shiwen. "Ancient Baron's continent, and the ancient Phoenix domain." Until now, Yi Shiwen still remembered the time when Hua Menghan was brought away. At that time, he was being beaten into a state of humiliation. Even until now, Yi Shiwen still had no confidence in winning Fengling. There were various massive forces within the ancient Baron's continent which had their world. Every single colossal force had its independent world. For example, the Demon Domain, the Beast Domain, the Ancient Phoenix Domain, the Dragon Island. It contained all kinds of worlds like these. Even within the ancient Barons, the Ancient Phoenix Domain was a massive force with a high reputation. They were still an unimaginable existence for Yi Shiwen. Tonight was his departing ceremony. Initially, he planned on leaving the next morning. However, he suddenly decided to leave now. He really couldn't handle the sadness of separation with his loved ones forever, even if it weren't considered parting forever. However, after leaving for the ancient Baron's continent, he didn't know if he could ever come back. Even if he could, he didn't know how long it would take. This departure might be a departure of life and death. Yi Shiwen sighed. He expanded the enormous wings behind him and flew towards the moon, disappearing by the skies. Within the vast void, a city appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. It had been a year. Ever since he entered the transportation platform, a whole year had passed. It was different from what he had imagined. Initially, he expected himself to be transported directly to the ancient Baron's continent. However, in truth, that wasn't the case. Instead, he was directly transformed into a void. This was an ancient road that had been deserted since long ago. It was no wonder why this was called a pathway. According to myths, there exist many kinds of similar pathways. The roots of the world tree created every single one of them. These roots lead to different domains. This place could almost be called uninhabited, as everywhere around him were barrens. After walking for an entire year, Yi Shiwen finally saw the city floating within the void. Maybe in the past, this pathway might have still been walkable and serves as the central turning point. However, it was now merely a land full of barrens. Above the city, Yi Shiwen could still vaguely see the old past. There were sites of people's activity. There was an abundance of inns, stalls, living places, and many others. However, for whatever reason, everyone had retreated from here. There are many kinds of cities like this within all the pathways. We barely just entered the main road, right? Said Yemo. This was still a better conditioned one. If it were within the pathway between the demon domain and the ancient Baron's continent, it would most likely be caught up in warfare, resulting in havoc. Although this place is uninhabited, it saves us quite an amount of troubles. Indeed. Yi Shiwen nodded. However, he was still feeling frustrated. This was much more annoying than he had imagined. After journeying for an entire year, he finally saw one such city. It seemed like he still had a long journey ahead. Initially, not everyone could go to the ancient Baron's continent. Only the elites within 100 years could go there. In truth, this ancient road was considered a form of training for them. Only it had been too long since someone hadn't passed by here. Tens of thousands of years might have passed, or even hundreds of thousands of years had passed. As such, the entire place was uninhabited. Ever since he had encountered the abandoned city, Yi Shiwen would discover another city once every 10 or 20 days. The cities would either be dilapidated or desolated. However, there weren't any population present without any exceptions, which made it seem too desolate. Another year passed. Finally, Yi Shiwen could vaguely see an exceptionally huge closed door in front of his eyes. Rather than calling it a city gate, it would be better to call it a colossal city. This city was overly populated. Just by roughly looking at it, the population would amount to 10 million people. No matter where it was, this place was worthy of being called a colossal city. In front of the city gate, Yi Shiwen could vaguely see dozens of people quietly waiting outside of the gate. Yi Shiwen, after you pass this gate, you'll enter the ancient Baron's continent. After that, you will truly enter the ancient Baron's continent, where an abundance of experts gathers. Said Yemo. Do you see those people? They're the same as you. They're all prodigies that came from all sorts of worlds. A city gate would usually accept prodigies that came from dozens of worlds. Now they're all present. After the closed gate opens, if they're outstanding enough, they might even attract the attention of the sects within the ancient Baron's continent, and even be recruited. Dozens of worlds. Yi Shiwen finally had an understanding of there being an abundance of experts within the ancient Baron's continent. With only this closed gate alone, there might be experts from dozens of worlds that might be accepted. With how many city doors there were, including all the local prodigies from the ancient Baron's continent, this implied that the number of prodigies within the ancient Baron's continent amounted to an entire pile of sands, with each prodigy being a single sand particle. It was practically impossible to identify the number of prodigies. Why do I feel much more relaxed? Even the suppression in my cultivation felt much less ever since I came here. Asked Yi Shiwen with an odd feeling. That's a great question. The thing is, the cultivation suppression of the ancient Baron's continent is extremely little. It's 10 times laxer compared to the true martial domain. As such, if the prodigies of your domain cultivated in the ancient Baron's continent, it would be as easy as eating and drinking. As such, the local sects of the ancient Baron's continent would mostly snatch for the prodigies that originated from other worlds. Explained Yemo. This was why there was such an abundance of prodigies and experts within the ancient Baron's continent. This was one of the reasons why the other domains, like the demon domain, the beast domain, and the ancient phoenix domain, weren't able to oppress the ancient Baron's continent. Yi Shiwen nodded and came to a revelation. He understood what Yemo meant. It was just like someone who was used to living in a world with 10 times the Earth's gravity, suddenly arriving at the Earth itself. That person would instantly become a Superman. Only he never expected the ancient Baron's continent's environment to be so lax to this extent. Other domains might not have their strength suppressed by the transcendent realm first level, like your true martial domain. However, in truth, cultivating there wasn't as simple as cultivating in the ancient Baron's continent. Besides, their domain's connections with the ancient Barons continent had never been cut off before. As a result, they would usually send their outstanding disciples in the half-step transcendent realm, or the transcendent realm, to the ancient Barons continent. What's more, they weren't afraid of their sect's disciples joining another sect within the ancient Barons continent. After all, these were two completely different levels, said Yemo. If one of their sect's disciples could join a huge overlord sect within the ancient Barons continent and become a higher-up within, their sect's disciples would, in turn, be able to take care of their original sect. Such an act was beneficial for both sides. Yi Shiwen understood what Yemo meant. In other words, the ancient Barons was a holy land for prodigies, where numerous experts dwelled within. Initially, Yi Shiwen didn't think of anything impressive within the ancient Barons continent. Now that he finally saw it, he truly felt that the ancient Barons had lived up to its name. Within Yi Zaiwen's group, almost all of them were experts in the Transcendent Realm first level. Originally, Yi Zaiwen's cultivation was sufficient for him to be a top-notch expert beneath the starry skies, being invincible no matter where he was. Other than Li Feng and a limited number of experts, no one else could defeat Yi Shiwen. However, he wasn't outstanding anymore within this group of people. He was just considered normal. Some of the people present were even in the Transcendent Realm first-level peak. Every single one of them was a powerful prodigy. If they managed to cultivate to such a state even in their original world, cultivating would be extremely simple upon reaching the ancient Barons continent. At the very least, it was like this during the Transcendent Realm. Their previous experiences would become their best foundation in the future. Of course, this merely referred to cultivation alone. If combat prowess was included, Yi Shiwen had the confidence of defeating them using the Star Beast avatar. Seeing Yi Shiwen walking over, the dozens of people merely raised their eyelids and did not give any reactions. Every single one of them was peerless prodigies and were extremely talented within their domains. Although Yi Zaiwen's cultivation was decent, it was merely decent. It wasn't sufficient to make them have any reactions. It was said that there were even people in the Transcendent Realm second level and third level present in the past. Yi Shiwen was merely in the Transcendent Realm first level peak, which was considered the expected standard. Nothing was intriguing at all. You must just arrived here, right? A clear voice resounded from afar. Yi Shiwen looked at the voice source and saw a woman that seemed to be in her 17 or 18. She wore a watercolored long robe, and her skin was snow white. Her facial structures were considered delicate. Although she wasn't an extreme beauty, she was still regarded as beautiful. Unfortunately, looks don't matter for martial warriors. Her strength was decent as well, as she had already reached the half-step transcendent late realm. She had a firm foundation as well. With only a little more, she would ascend the transcendent realm. Among all those that Yi Shiwen knew, only Mu Xingjie was comparable to her. Chapter 824, Scram. Huang Wuji had already ascended to the transcendent realm. Naturally, they were not befitted to make a comparison. However, Mu Xingjie could only be compared to Huang Wuji before he had ascended to the transcended realm. The scarce prodigies within the true martial school could be seen anywhere here. It was conceivable how shocked Yi Shiwen was. Besides, this girl was a rock-bottom existence among these groups of experts. That's right. Yi Shiwen nodded. Hee, I just arrived here as well. She gave a beautiful smile. My name is Shen Yanmei. You can call me Yanmei. I'm a Navy Tide sect's disciple, from the Navy Tide domain. This woman had an extrovert personality. When they had just met each other, she had already leaked information about her one after another. Yi Shiwen. I'm from the True Martial Domain's True Martial School. Seeing how straightforward she was, Yi Shiwen did the same. True Martial Domain. Shen Yanmei frowned her lovely brows, obviously thinking about where the True Martial Domain was from. After all, they originated from a different world from Yi Shiwen. True Martial Domain, and all the other domains beneath the starry skies connection had been cut off from the ancient Barons continent for countless years. As such, other places, including the ancient Barons continent, wouldn't have heard about them. However, the other domains still had ties with the ancient Baron's continent. She was a little confused upon hearing such a foreign name like the true martial domain. It's a small domain. It's normal for you not to know about it, said Yi Shiwen with a smile. He could tell that this Shen Yanmei was a little pure, and didn't have a plotting mind. As such, Yi Shiwen was willing to communicate with her. All right, Shen Yanmei pouted. She said, may I ask, which sect are you planning on joining? I heard that the Unparalleled Palace and the Crimson Peak Villa are currently recruiting, said Shen Yanmei. There were various sects nearby. However, the competition here was too intense. As a result, only 2 sects would be allowed to recruit prodigies after a certain amount of time. As for what kind of prodigies they were able to recruit, it was based solely on luck. Of course, some vast sects even sent some people to various domains, observing the prodigies within other domains. If anyone caught their attention, they would bring the prodigies away. If the true martial domain's ties weren't cut off from the outside world for such a long time, some sects might have noticed him and brought him away. Of course, the sects that had the capabilities of dispatching people to other domains were the equivalent of the enormous forces within the true martial domain. Ordinary small sects didn't possess such capabilities. Neither. I'm not planning on joining any sections. I plan to venture alone for the meantime, said Yi Shiwen. Of course, this was merely an excuse. The true reason was that he intended to head straight towards Mountain Qi and figure out the situation of his own identity. Although he didn't know where Mountain Qi was, he would head to Mountain Qi upon entering the ancient Baron's continent. You aren't planning on joining a sect? That's understandable. Even though the Unparalleled Palace and the Crimson Peak Villa were decent, you've already ascended to the Transcendent Realm long ago. You might even be able to join a better sect, said Shen Yanmei. From her perspective, Yi Shiwen chose neither of them because he had already chosen other sections. This wasn't illegal as well. In truth, this was considered extremely normal. Everyone had the sects which they intended to join. The sects were aware of these as well, and dare not stop the prodigies from doing so. Such matters happened in the past as well. A sect wanted to forcefully recruit an extreme prodigy into their sect, which enraged the extreme prodigy. In the end, the prodigy was being hunted down by said sect. After 1,000 years, when the prodigy had ascended to the supreme realm, he returned to wipe out the entire sect. Since then, no sect dared to forcefully recruit any prodigies any longer. After all, if the prodigies weren't dead, a great calamity might befall upon the sections. When will this door open? Asked Yi Shiwen. When the people of the Unparalleled Palace and the Crimson Peak Villa arrives, it should open, said Shen Yanmei with a beautiful smile. They even plan to use this to decrease our prestige. Yi Shiwen smiled. He was no stranger to such methods. Such techniques wouldn't be used on ordinary people, as they naturally possessed a sense of fear for the strong sections. However, for some extremely strong prodigies, such wasn't the case at all. Although they weren't as paramount of a figure as Yi Shiwen was in their sect, they were still outstanding people within their peers. People like these had their prestige, as they were practically uncontested among their peers, which allowed them to act pridefully. The sects here intended to remind them about what kind of place this was. This wasn't the small little domain which they originated from. Just as Shen Yanmei finished speaking, 2 groups of around 20 people flew here from the sky. The side that wore apricot color long robes were the Unparalleled Palace's disciples, while the other side that wore crimson red robes were all the disciples of the Crimson Peak Villa. Under the guidance of their respective unfathomable elders, they descended in front of the crowd. Various prodigies that were indifferent to the matters happening around them widened their eyes one after another. After all, most of them might be joining these 2 sections. Although there were many prodigies here, no one was strong enough to ignore these 2 sections. Everyone, you're all experts from your respective domains. I believe that your sect's seniors had already informed and warned you about it before you left, which is why I'm not going to emphasize the subject. Those that want to join our sects, you're allowed to register now, said the Unparalleled Palace's elder. He was a white-haired old man with a youthful appearance. However, glitter was flickering within his eyes. His vital energy and blood were much vigorous than youth. His cultivation was at an unimaginable height. The Unparalleled Palace's experts and the Crimson Peak Villa's experts both stood in two different areas. The various prodigies also registered at the place which they had previously chosen. Shen Yanmei had also left Yi Shiwen behind, and strode towards the direction of the Unparalleled Palace. Yi Shiwen glanced at the Unparalleled Palace and the Crimson Peak Villa. Although these two sects weren't considered strong within the ancient Baron's continent, they far surpassed the true martial school. Yi Shiwen couldn't see through either of the leading elders as well. However, these elders had yet to escape the transcendent realm yet. They should be considered as extremely advanced cultivators among the transcendent realm. Behind them were the disciples in duty. They were all transcendent realm experts as well. Although they were also in the transcendent realm first level, they were considered the younger generation, not the older generation. Such foundations made the true martial school utterly in shame, as they could only allow Huang Wuji alone to ascend to the transcendent realm. On the ancient Baron's continent, it was effortless to cultivate, especially when compared to Yi Ziwen's previous environment. Yi Shiwen could feel his main body within the Tianyuan mirror on the verge of ascending to the half-step transcendent intermediate realm. When that time comes, he would be comparable to a transcendent realm first-level expert. He felt like a chain that weighed hundreds of pounds was lifted from his body, which made his entire body relaxed. At this time, it was best for a breakthrough in a safe place. When his main body also ascends to the transcendent realm, his security would undoubtedly improve significantly. From Yi Shiwen understood that although transcendent realm experts weren't considered as top-notch experts within the ancient Baron's continent, they entered the ranks of an expert. Great sages might only be considered as ordinary people within the ancient Baron's continent. As for the sage realm, only miners and slaves would have such cultivation. Such was the difference. After ascending to the transcendent realm, he would be considered to have some reputation. No one would dare to force him anymore. Very soon everyone else had finished selecting their desired sections. Only Yi Shiwen remained along in the middle, choosing neither of the two sections. The people from both sects stared at Yi Shiwen. Previously, some individuals didn't choose any sects present. Such people were incredibly talented, and were already in the transcendent realm 5th level, or 6th level upon making an appearance. In fact, there were even people with higher cultivations. The sects were naturally aware that they had no qualifications to recruit them. However, no matter what, Yi Shiwen was merely in the transcendent realm 1st level peak. Although his cultivation was only considered decent, it wasn't outstanding either. People who had cultivation like him were widespread. And yet, he dared to choose neither of them. Who is this person? Does he think of himself as some top prodigy? He's merely in the transcendent realm 1st level. Why is he acting so arrogant? I agree. He truly thinks that he is someone special. What a fool. Does he think that those huge overlord forces would accept him when he reaches the inner continent? Such naiveness. In the ancient Baron's continent, the number of prodigies present would only amount to much more than wherever his previous domain is. Who does he think he is? Everyone's discussions fell into the ears of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen merely shut his eyes and didn't care much about it. The discussion of these people wouldn't affect his emotions at all. Kid, let me give you a chance. Our elder places you in high regard. As long as you're willing to join our unparalleled palace, you'll become our outer disciple. You won't have to start from being a common disciple. Suddenly, a handsome teenager from the unparalleled palace walked out. He stood in front of Yi Shiwen and spoke while looking down on Yi Shiwen. Sorry, but I'm not interested in joining any sects at the moment. Yi Shiwen frowned. This person's tone made him uncomfortable. Brat, you're seeking trouble for yourself, the teenager snorted. Do you think that this place is still your small little domain? This is the ancient Baron's continent. No matter how exceptional you are, you better know your place here. The martial arts you learned from your small little domain is merely a laughable joke. Today I, Ko Wendong, shall teach you how not to act so pridefully and loftily. Upon hearing his words, Yi Shiwen frowned. He coldly spitted out a word, scram. Fine. You're truly seeking your death. Do you truly think that you're so strong, being a transcendent realm 1st level? Let me tell you, among those in the same realm as you, your combat prowess would only be a joke. Ko Wendong was enraged and continuously snorted. His transcendent realm first-level aura started surging throughout his body. Chapter 825. Defeat with one high. These sects dare not provoke a prodigy in the transcendent realm 5th or 6th level upon entering here. Without making things hard for each other, there wouldn't be any form of conflict between them. However, they didn't regard Yi Shiwen, someone among the transcendent realm first-level peak, among prodigy's ranks. Even if he were a prodigy, he would be considered an ordinary prodigy. While such people might be outstanding characters, which stood upon the peak of strength within the true martial school, they were far too typical in the ancient Baron's continent. The cultivating environment was much laxer. Even those disciples that followed their sect's elders had such cultivation as well. While these people might experience a drastic increase in cultivation, it was impossible to reach a state where the entire sect would be threatened. This was mostly the case for people like Yi Shiwen, who originated from other small domains. None of the sects held him in high regard here. It was just like how the huge forces cultivators act when facing the stray cultivators in the true martial domain. In terms of cultivation and grades of martial arts, these sects were far superior to those that originated from other small domains. This was a benefit that people from the small domains had no chance of enjoying. As such, even though they were both in the transcendent realm first-level peak, Ko Wendong had the confidence to deal with Yi Shiwen easily. He intended to teach a lesson to this ignorant brat from some smaller domains and educate Yi Shiwen about how weak he was. He intended to diminish Yi Ziwen's pride, as Yi Shiwen was considered nothing here. Ko Wendong's aura became stronger and stronger. His transcendent realm first-level peak's strength wasn't artificial at all, and even Yi Shiwen was amazed. Even Huang Wuji's talents wouldn't net him such strength. Without any doubt, the cultivation environment of the ancient Baron's continent was so much laxer compared to the true martial domain. Unparalleled space-shattering palm. Ko Wendong's dense qi surged out from his body, and he instantly attacked Yi Shiwen. His figure burst forward, and his hand traversed through space, immediately reaching Yi Ziwen's front. The spiritual energies of the world were faintly intertwined, which released a horrifying might. The expressions of all the spectating prodigy disciples that originated from other smaller domains changed. While the cultivation environment of the ancient Baron's continent was much laxer compared to their original world, the laws here were much more complicated by tenfolds or even hundredfolds. While transcendent realm experts could easily shatter space within their original domain, it was practically impossible within the ancient Baron's continent. It was also tough to intertwine their martial arts together with this place's spiritual qi. And yet, Ko Wendong had the capabilities of doing so, which made their expressions change. It was conceivable that Ko Wendong was merely considered normal among all the unparalleled palace disciples present. He was considered no one outstanding, and yet even he had such strengths. This ancient Baron's continent was truly amazing. However, some lofty prodigies didn't care much about this Ko Wendong. Even if he was stronger than them, they felt that Ko Wendong merely had the advantage of being here earlier than them. After they learned the martial arts of the ancient Baron's continent, and their cultivations experience a drastic increase, this awe-inspiring Ko Wendong would be considered nothing. Yi Shiwen could only feel a wave of killing intent rushing towards him. Ko Wendong's entire face was red, and he was exceedingly enraged. With his first attack, he was already attempting to deal a killing blow to Yi Shiwen. After all, prodigies like him would appear in abundance every once in a while. Yi Shiwen was such an insignificant character. Yi Shiwen, be careful. Seeing Ko Wendong's surging aura, Ko Yanmei quickly reminded Yi Shiwen. This caused her surrounding unparalleled palace seniors to look at her in rebuke. Why are you supporting an outsider instead of someone from your sect? Even though Shen Yanmei hadn't joined the unparalleled palace yet, the disciples of the unparalleled palace regarded her as one of their members. Seeing how pretty Shen Yanmei was, and how pure-minded she was, no one decided to lecture her for it. Such was the treatment any beauties would receive, no matter where they were. It's too late. Ko Wendong snorted upon hearing Shen Yanmiai's words. His attacking speed got even faster, and a surge of energy was instantly blasted out, shooting itself towards Yi Zaiwen's direction. The vibration of the energy made even the air burn fanatically. When his palm reached Yi Zaiwen's front, Yi Shiwen finally moved. There wasn't any extravagant action. His attack appeared slow at first glance, but it was not sluggish. Just as he raised his hand, his fist already went up against Ko Wendong's attack. Boom! A low explosive sound resounded in the sky. The sound was so low in tone. Everyone felt an ear-piercing sensation. The energy brought along by the unparalleled sky-shattering palm was also dissipated in an instant, turning into ripples visible to the naked eye, which started spreading around. What? Ko Wendong's eyes widened. He never expected the attack he had prepared beforehand to be ineffective, being blocked by such a simple fist. He could even feel that Yi Shiwen didn't even use any form of qi. With Yi Zaiwen's physique alone, he managed to block Ko Wendong's attack. How is this possible? Is he a cultivator that cultivates the toughness of his physique? Before he had the time to think about it, Yi Zaiwen's counterattack instantly arrived. An ethereal palm traversed through space and landed on Ko Wendong's chest with lightning speed. Ko Wendong's protective aura wasn't able to withstand the attack. It was penetrated instantly. The palm landed on his chest. Boom! A deep voice of their physical body clashing resounded, and Ko Wendong flew outwards. After being knocked back for more than 10 feet, he finally came to a halt. Everyone was stunned. They never expected the Ko Wendong, who was still surging with his aura, to be trounced. He was just like a fly that was being casually chased away. Everyone was a little dumbfounded, especially the prodigies that came from other domains. They were already shocked when seeing Ko Wendong's attacks, surprised by how strong the ancient Baron's continent's experts were. When facing those in the same realm, they might not be able to defeat the ancient Baron's experts. However, they felt like their emotions were sitting on a roller coaster. From the sky, it plummeted into the chasms of the world. The expert they were initially in awe of was so casually knocked away, just like a fly. What in the world? This had truly exceeded their expectations. Initially, they were secretly scornful of Yi Shiwen for not knowing his place. While they possessed talents, they had yet to learn of the martial arts of the ancient Baron's continent. Without receiving the teachings of their sex seniors, their talents would merely be something laughable. Prodigies perishing was extremely common, no matter where it was. When the prodigy managed to grow, they would be considered a true prodigy. If they couldn't grow, their corpse would merely be the stepping stone of others' path to being invincible. And yet Yi Shiwen did it so casually. With only his physique strength alone, he had easily defeated Ko Wendong, who was previously raging with a menacing aura. They were both in the Transcendent Realm first-level peak. How could someone be so strong? There were various Transcendent Realm first-level peak experts among them. However, based on their analysis, withstanding such an attack was already good enough. They weren't able to counterattack, not to mention trouncing Ko Wendong. It was simply impossible for a Transcendent Realm first-level peak to do so. If Yi Zaiwen's cultivation weren't in full display, they would suspect that Yi Shiwen had concealed his cultivation. Of course, they wouldn't know that the true martial domain only allowed one to cultivate to the Transcendent Realm first-level peak. As such, the true martial domain's Transcendent Realm first levels experts were all finding a way to increase their strength. Any one of the true martial domain's Transcendent Realm veterans with the combat prowess of a sect master would be able to defeat these prodigies. What's more, Yi Shiwen was close to invincible beneath the starry skies. Even the sect master level experts weren't his opponent. Of course, this was only limited to those that were at the Transcendent Realm first level. Shen Yanmei looked at Yi Shiwen and Ko Wendong. She succumbed into an awkward predicament. One was a friend that she just knew, which she had fun conversing with. And yet, the other person was her senior brother. She was in a dilemma, as she didn't know whether to cheer for or scold Yi Shiwen. Nice. Little brother, nice techniques. Our unparalleled palace was acting too rashly. To his surprise, the first one that spoke was the unparalleled palace's elder, who also had a smile on his face. He could tell that Yi Shiwen had already held back his strength from his previous attack. Otherwise, Ko Wendong might even be killed on the spot. Since Yi Shiwen held back, he naturally didn't want to go overboard. Since you're not willing to join our unparalleled palace and the Crimson Peak Villa, we won't force you to. We hope that everything ends peacefully. Yi Shiwen nodded and let down the guard in his heart. He was just afraid of this elder acting out of rage. Yi Shiwen dared to go against Ko Wendong, mainly because he had his trump card. Although the elder's cultivation far surpassed his, he wouldn't have any problems escaping. Fortunately, the elder was still somewhat sensible and didn't make things harder for him. However, Yi Shiwen knew that the elder's kindness was based on him defeating Ko Wendong so easily. If he didn't display such an overbearing strength, the elder wouldn't even care if Ko Wendong killed him. What he didn't know was that the elder had noticed his potential. While he wasn't in the Transcendent Realm 5th level or the 6th level, his current combat prowess alone was sufficient to capture the elder's attention. Even when Yi Shiwen and Ko Wendong were in the same realm, Yi Shiwen was far stronger, which implied that his potential was far more robust than Ko Wendong. The human body was just like a water tank. The stronger one was compared to others of the same realm. Their potential would be much more profound. If Ko Wendong's body were a water tank, then Yi Ziwen's body would be a long river, its depths unable to fathom. Such a person might not have the chance to awaken their potential when they were still young. However, if their potential were awakened, their future would be limitless. If such a person wasn't dead, it might result in their calamity. As such, the elder displayed an uncharacteristic kind expression. Before the conflict got any bigger, it disappeared into thin air. On the other hand, he could even be on good terms with Yi Shiwen. Such was a favorable act. Open the door. Let's return to the ancient barons. Chapter 826. Depose everyone's martial arts techniques crack. A dull sound resounded, and the colossal door slowly opened, and everyone rushed inside. The experts of the unparalleled palace and the Crimson Peak Villa had separated with each other very quickly, going to their destinations. On the contrary, Yi Shiwen wasn't familiar with this place, which meant he had no destination at all. As he glanced around, he realized that this was a vibrant city. Humans were walking everywhere, and it was very crowded. The most significant difference from the cities that he had previously entered was that everyone within this city was cultivators. There was no ordinary civilian at all. Even those handymen had the cultivation of the legendary realm. This place could be called a cultivator city. The ancient Barons continent was truly filled with experts. Only someone strong enough could survive in such a nourishing place. In the true martial domain, ordinary people were still able to survive. However, in the ancient Barons continent, other than a newborn, there were no such ordinary people. Little brother, you must be a prodigy from other domains, right? Do you not know where to go? That's fine. I have a map of the ancient Barons continent with me. It's only 5,000 spirit crystals for one of them. A brute confronted him. He seemed to have seen Yi Shiwen passing through the gate, and immediately advertised his product. Yi Shiwen instantly became speechless. 5,000 spirit crystals. It should be known that only experts above the Transcendent Realm could materialize spirit crystals. 5,000 spirit crystals were equivalent to 500,000 elixirs. What kind of map is this? How is it so expensive? It would be fine if it were the map of the ancient Barons continent. After all, it was worthy of that price. Besides, 5,000 spirit crystals were nothing when compared to Yi Ziwen's current wealth. After so many years of warfare, even though he had consumed a large amount of them, he still had over 1 billion spirit crystals. However, who would believe that the ancient Barons continent's map would be sold everywhere? This place was different from his previous life. In this world, maps were two precious resources of warfare. Without something like a satellite, the map of the world could only be studied slowly. However, this world was enormous. Forget about the ancient Barons continent. Even the true martial domain was much larger than the size of the Earth. Even if the map were accurate, such a map wouldn't be sold for 5,000 spirit crystals. If the map truly inscribed the continent's details, People would buy it even for the price of 50 million spirit crystals. Although he had just arrived at the ancient Baron's continent, he wasn't someone oblivious of anything. During all the years he cultivated and trained in the true martial domain, he had already recognized such tricks and was aware of one when he encountered it. Yi Shiwen ignored him and continued walking towards the inner city area. The middle-aged man's expression suddenly changed. He retracted his smile and said, "Brat, you're finding trouble for yourself." Yi Shiwen could feel a dozen or more brutes suddenly appearing around him and were surrounding him. "Brat, if you obediently handed over 5,000 spirit crystals, nothing would happen. However, you had the audacity to ignore us. This matter wouldn't be settled by just 5,000 spirit crystals now." The middle-aged man in lead snorted. His expression was too savage, as if his previous docile look was all just for show. "Today, I shall break a hand of yours, as the price of your arrogance." In a nearby restaurant, the senior disciples and the new disciples of the unparalleled palace were inside, with their elders' lead. They would only return to their sect after having a meal here. Although eating was unnecessary for them, they mainly intended to satisfy the lust of their tongues. This was also a habit of theirs. "Elder, look. Isn't that Yi Shiwen?" A disciple noticed Yi Shiwen, who was currently being surrounded, and quickly called the elder. With Shen Yanmei, everyone knew that his name was Yi Shiwen. Everyone from the unparalleled palace took a look in Yi Ziwen's direction. They had separated from each other ever since they entered the city. To their surprise, they met Yi Shiwen here once more. "He seems to be in some trouble," said Shen Yanmei worriedly. Such was her personality. She was a little pure and had no plotting mind. Previously, Yi Shiwen was already curious about how Shen Yanmei managed to survive in this world, where survival of the fittest was very apparent. Seeing how pure of a mindset she had. It's not only some trouble. See that middle-aged man? His name is Ma Yuanlong. In this city that welcomes the new, he's considered one of the brutes that bully others. In the past, many newcomers had already suffered from his hands. Some newcomers think too highly of themselves and choose not to join a sect before entering. Other than those unparalleled prodigies, Ma Yuanlong would target all the others, said a disciple with a snort, obviously looking down on Yi Shiwen. Although no huge clash happened between the two sides, he felt like Yi Shiwen was too prideful and didn't place the unparalleled palace in his eyes at all. In history, people like this would always appear. Even if their strength wasn't enough, they still thought too highly of themselves and chose not to join any sect. In the end, they would merely succumb to being an average Joe. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen was someone like that. If he obediently bought the map, nothing would happen. However, since he didn't buy it, he might have to face the wrath of Ma Yuanlong. Although Ma Yuanlong was only in the Transcendent Realm first-level peak, he's the absolute prime in this realm. If it wasn't for his cultivation being forked into a different path, he might have already been in the second level, or even third level long ago. That disciple continued. He's even stronger than senior brother Ko. Ko Wendong remained silent, without commenting on that disciple's statement. He merely looked at Yi Shiwen, his complex emotion written all over his face. It was apparent that Yi Shiwen trouncing him had a significant impact on his heart. His sense of superiority of being born in the ancient Baron's continent crumbled into nothingness. Yi Ziwen's expression remained calm. Seeing how these people didn't possess any good intentions, a killing intent flashed across his eyes. Do they think that I'm such an easy target to be bullied? Yi Shiwen didn't even feel like saying a word to people like them. His figure instantly moved, and he lunged himself towards Ma Yuanlong. Curses, such courage! Ma Yuanlong was taken aback by Yi Ziwen's action. He never expected Yi Shiwen to take the first move, despite being surrounded by others. He suddenly felt exceptionally shameful, as he was surprised by an ignorant brat. "You're seeking death." He instantly extended his hand. His terrifying energy transformed into a large eagle, which came dashing towards Yi Shiwen. This was the eagle claw technique, which had been cultivated by him to a grand scale. Even an entire mountain would be turned into a pile of debris. Cheap tricks. Yi Shiwen extended his hand. His thin and white palm instantly traversed through the universe and grabbed the large eagle by the neck. With a squeeze, the large eagle immediately exploded. The momentum of his hand was unabated. In almost an instant, it descended upon Ma Yuanlong's body. Bang! Ma Yuanlong didn't seem to have any strength to fight back. He was instantly knocked back and abruptly started spitting out blood. However, Yi Zaiwen's attacks had yet to come to an end. He instantly chased after Ma Yuanlong and gave him a kick. Boom! Another loud bang resounded. Yi Zaiwen's kick instantly shattered Ma Yuanlong's dantian. His meridians also shattered in that instant. Ma Yuanlong widened his eyes and hoped to be knocked out on the spot. His dantian was destroyed on the spot, and even his martial arts techniques were deposed from him. He never expected Yi Shiwen to be so cruel. Upon seeing Ma Yuanlong's martial arts being deposed on the spot, the other brutes who previously surrounded Yi Shiwen were all shocked. In the ancient Baron's continent, one would be considered nothing without their martial arts technique. They would become trash, free to be bullied by anyone. At this point, it was much better to kill him instead. They immediately turned around and attempted to flee. They weren't some sort of benevolent person, to begin with. They merely worked together with Ma Yuanlong due to the benefits along with it. However, seeing how even Ma Yuanlong wasn't Yi Zaiwen's opponent, they knew that they had encountered someone much stronger than them. As such, they didn't dare remain any longer. In the past, they were victorious no matter where they were. Although Ma Yuanlong enjoyed bullying the weak, he wasn't someone stupid. If a Transcendent Realm 5th level or 6th level prodigy was present, he wouldn't even get near them. And yet, Yi Shiwen was merely in the Transcendent Realm 1st level. No one expected this Transcendent Realm 1st level to be so strong. Ma Yuanlong could already be considered the prime within the Transcendent Realm 1st level, as he had been remaining in this realm for quite a few years. And yet he was instantly defeated by Yi Shiwen. If Yi Shiwen knew their current thoughts, he would despise their thoughts. How many years were quite a few years? It should be known that most people in the true martial domain had remained in the Transcendent Realm 1st level for thousands of years. How was it comparable? Thinking of fleeing? Too late. Yi Shiwen had no sense of pity for these people at all. In the past, who knew how many people had suffered by their hands? This group was unmatched to Yi Shiwen. Even if they attempted to flee, they were still slower than Yi Zaiwen's speed. Within a short amount of time, their martial art techniques were all deposed by Yi Shiwen. The spectating crowd sucked in a deep breath, appalled by Yi Zaiwen's strength and his cruelty. Even the experts of the unparalleled palace were stunned, and lights flickered in Ko Wendong's eyes. Yi Shiwen didn't just hold back when facing him. Otherwise, killing him would barely take any effort. Among the Transcendent Realm 1st level martial warriors, no one should be stronger than Yi Shiwen. I agree. I've never seen a Transcendent Realm 1st level martial warrior to be so eerily strong. I'm afraid even some Transcendent Realm 2nd level experts aren't as strong as him. No wonder why he's so prideful. He does have his strength to back him up. So what if he's strong? No matter how strong he is, he's just in the Transcendent Realm 1st level. There are so many experts in the world, and even an abundance of people that have surpassed the Transcendent Realm. If he continues to be so prideful, he'll suffer from it in the future. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.